Good evening. The Rio Rancho Board of Education for meeting for Monday, October 26, 2020 is now called to order. If all would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, make sure your microphones are muted. Lynn Coleman will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Board Member Coleman. Okay, Jane, will you take a roll call for us?
Yes, I will. Madam President Galbraith,
Present.
Vice President Morgan,
Present.
Secretary Scott,
Present.
Board Member Cullen,
Present.
Board Member Coleman.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Have a quorum present. We'd like to welcome everyone out to our meeting tonight on this very, very snowy evening. Typical day, we would have probably canceled our meetings tonight, but because of our circumstances, we're able to still hold our board meetings virtually. So every so often we have to look for those positive things as we go through this pandemic. So welcome to all, and welcome to all to those who are presenting tonight. I know we have a lot of visitors who will be presenting throughout our evening, and we are grateful to have you. We will start off tonight with our superintendent, Dr. Visu Cleveland. She will give us some introductory comments. Dr. Cleveland.
Good evening, everyone. And it certainly is a chilly night, and we have seen extremes from 80 to 20 in just a few days. So that's kind of how it can be this time of the year. But thank you for joining us. And I do have a few introductory remarks this evening. I'd like to give you an update on COVID-19 as it relates to our district. And we've got a lot that's going on. And so I'd like to just go back a little bit and share a few things. Some of these things we've talked about before, but I think they're important to go over again, and certainly important for the community to hear as well. So prior to this recent surge of cases in our state, really our processes and our procedures, everything was pretty manageable. We were able to kind of move it pretty effectively and efficiently, and we're still doing that, but it's much more difficult now. As the number of cases rise in our schools, of course, that is simply a reflection of the rise in the larger community. So when there's more cases in the larger community, schools are going to have more cases. And we're really hoping that those numbers are going to get down again. We are beginning to identify a good number of certainly symptomatic cases, and most of those, when someone actually has symptoms, they either go to the DOH testing in in Sandoval County in Bernalillo, and in many cases they go to their private providers, such as Presbyterian or Dexcare or other healthcare providers. The surveillance testing, we're sending again right about 5% of our staff on a weekly basis. They are selected randomly. We are beginning to see definitely results from that. And I believe that at this point we have 4 that have been identified through the surveillance testing. So it is definitely working. And it is another way of trying to stop the spread. But again, those that are symptomatic are generally found another way, usually through their health providers or through the Department of Health testing. Certainly the contact tracing and all the communication with everyone that is involved has been a lot more complicated and time intensive than we originally thought it was going to be. It takes a lot of time for someone to think about when they have a positive case. Who all have I been in contact with? Where have I been? What parts of the building have I been in? Who all have I seen? And so, and for students, it's, did you ride the bus? Did you go to SAFE? Did you go any place other than your classroom? So tracking all of that down is taking a considerable amount of time. And we have folks that have maps of the building, and they just, sit down and go through and determine where they've been. So we know where to go, where to clean, where to disinfect. I do want you to know that certainly district and some of our school staff have been working for the past 3 weekends. And it turns out that we're getting many of our cases late Friday afternoon because we were testing on Wednesday. And so we get them late, and it starts on Friday evening and it ends on Sunday evening. And so it's, we trace, as I said, every step. We discuss the case with officials from PED and also from officials from the Department of Health. And what they are looking for, and looking for in great detail, is whether there's been any spread within the building. And so they're looking to see were those cases brought from outside and brought into the school, or did the school see some spread within the building itself? So far, we've not seen any spread within the building. The cases have been coming from the outside. That of course, could change. Also on the weekend, they're calling all the classes, identifying all the bus riders and contacting them. Everyone was safe. Every staff member they came into contact with. And we've had a couple of circumstances where we've had a situation in a classroom where several people went to that classroom to be of assistance. And in doing so, when they got there, it turned out that one of the individuals was COVID positive. Then everyone who went in to help became exposed to the virus. So that's one of the challenges that we have. And then the other ones that have been working a lot are certainly our facilities crews, and they have been cleaning and disinfecting buildings sometimes as late as Sunday night, sometimes early Monday morning before we actually open. We do hope to maybe, I know that Mike Chavez is working with the county to see if there's any way that we can move our surveillance testing earlier in the week so they don't all come back on Friday afternoon. That would give us more time to actually work through this during the regular work week. And so I know they're working to see if there's any way that could be done. But it is certainly some of the tests will still come in late in the week. That's the case with private vendors and other providers that we don't have any, obviously we don't have any control over. Those come in when they come in. However, we have noticed that most of them come in early to midweek. I want to stress that there's a lot of things that are going very well. There are many things that are working very well. Certainly our parents, our students and staff have all been helpful and positive as we work through each and every case. And I tell everyone how much we appreciate that. And parents have just been wonderful in trying to help us identify people we do need to contact, and been very helpful and forthcoming with information. The staff has just gone beyond what you could expect. And so, and our students have been very helpful. So we are really very appreciative, and that teamwork is what helps us move these cases along very quickly. And certainly everyone is trying hard to keep our students in hybrid, but we are also committed to keeping our students and staff safe. All of the processes and procedures that we put in place are just working like clockwork. I mean, they just, they are just working like clockwork. And so everyone knows what to do, when to do it. It's certainly, though, every single time we have a case, there's something new. There's something we didn't think about, something we've learned from that. But I can tell you all the time and effort that people put into defining and clarifying what those processes would look like have sure paid off for us in terms of efficiency. And I want to say, and I'll say again, our staff has gone above and beyond to make this work for our students and our families. Next slide. Oh, thank you. Here are the challenges. So these are the things that is really important for the board to know. We are closing in on the threshold of how many positive cases that we can handle. We're getting to that point. We definitely need, just plead with the community to do everything possible that they possibly can to keep the number of cases down, because we are getting to the point where it's going to be very hard to manage if the numbers continue to go up, and it's already a handful. Certainly, as I mentioned before, the real key is those that are not demonstrating symptoms that are in the schools. And so the surveillance testing is important, and we appreciate people who have stepped up to participate in that. And if we determine, if the Department of Health determines that there has been spread within the building, then they will close it. So that's something that everyone is working on. To this point, we have not seen that, and hopefully we won't have that, but that could change everything very quickly. There also, has been some discussion about expanding surveillance testing, and that sounds really good. I mean, that sounds like a reasonable thing, I guess, to do. But for us, it would be really problematic because we already struggle to be able to cover classes with the subs that we have now. And so if we were to move surveillance testing up to 25%, don't know how we would manage the substitute issue, especially if we move that testing to Monday or earlier in the week. So that's something we're working on this week, and we'll certainly keep you informed about that. And on one hand, I understand why they're talking about it. The other is we can't quite figure out how in the world we would make that work. So here are the key points, some of the takeaways. It's surveillance testing that we're doing now takes on an average 2 days to get the results back. Other providers are taking anywhere from just a couple of days up to a week before we get the positive or negative results back. So there's a huge time lag in some cases. And I think that's one of the factors where we may be seeing some increase in the number of cases. And so we know that the state is working on a faster turnaround. You may have seen in the Albuquerque Journal that we are getting faster tests, very reliable and much more rapid return. We hope once those get out, that will also help keep the number of cases down by identifying people earlier. And as I said, we originally chose Wednesday because that was the deep cleaning day. And that was the day that worked really the best because no kids were in the building to do the surveillance testing. But the problem with that is they're coming back on Friday night. And so then people are having to work all weekend. And I would just have to tell you, our staff can't keep doing this. They can't work all week, work hard all week, and then work every weekend, starting Friday night and ending Sunday night. And so we're going to burn our people out, and so we've got to find a way to shift in that because people are tired, and it's just hard. You just can't work 7 days a week, especially with this kind of work because it's very intense, very fast-paced. I'd like to shift a little bit to the future and some of the challenges that we see for Thanksgiving travel and staffing. The public health order no longer allows people to travel and take a test and then go back to work. So initially that was the rule. And so many people made their plans. A lot of our staff and families made their plans. We got letters saying, I'm going to be gone, but as soon as I get back, I will test, and I'll be back as soon as I get my test back. That's no longer being allowed. And so now they will have to stay out the 14 days unless that changes with the public health order before Thanksgiving. And so many people made those plans before they knew that and really thought they were going to be back. And so the number of people that are traveling is very high. And I don't know how we're going to manage our schools because I don't think we're going to have enough staff with those that are mandated to take the 14 days. I don't know that we're going to have enough staff to be able to run the school. We can ask our staff, and I know some of our principals have really asked our staff, if you don't need to travel, please don't. For one thing, it's kind of a dangerous time to be traveling with the cases so high across the entire country. But I also understand the other side to that. Some of these people haven't seen their elderly parents since February. So have not seen their grandchildren since March. And so many of these families are making a decision that they are going to travel. And so we can ask, but there's certainly no way we could keep them from traveling. And I certainly understand, I understand their desire to be with their families, but it is going to cause problems when people come back and they have to be out for 14 days. Next slide, please. Okay. I want to just talk very briefly about a few of the agenda items that are coming up in the board meeting. One will be a report on our teacher intern program. And we've known for a long time that we needed to have a different approach to, or an additional approach to recruiting new teachers in the district. And so we needed a different way of looking at that and a different way of encouraging people to come. And so we wanted to do this for a long time. We spoke with the union. They were in agreement for us to do that. And so we have some folks in who are working with us. They have college degrees. Some of them have college degrees in education. Some of them have college degrees in other areas, but they have come in to help and support our regular teachers. And so these are interns. These are not student teachers. And they'll talk a little bit about the difference between the two. But they have been great to have. They've come in and they've helped. And when we've had absences, they've been able to fill in. They benefit, I think, from being able to see a wide variety of different schools and different experiences. And as we're finding some challenges at the elementary level, we're looking at shifting them to the elementary short term so that we have more people to fill in the in-person learning. And so I think it's an exciting program, and they have helped us fill classrooms that would have gone vacant. And we hope that they will enjoy what they're doing, that they will stay with us. We have some really great individuals who are working with this program. I have this year a Superintendent Academy Fellow. Her name is Tammy Richards. I don't know if Tammy is on this evening. If she does, flip on your camera for a second. But she will be working with this group as well. And she has an extensive background in schools. And so I think she will be a great support for these interns, and she will be working under Mike Chavez for that particular project. And then Peggy Johnson and Mike Chavez and Billy Helene will give you some additional information on that program this evening. But we think it's a good start. You know, ideally, you wouldn't start a new initiative or new program in a year like this one. But I'm really glad that we did. I'm really glad that we were able to bring these folks in, and they have just been a tremendous help to us. And I hope, as I said, I hope they'll stay with us in the future. Next slide, please. We also will be talking about the legislative session. This will obviously be a session that is unlike any we have ever seen. And they are preparing for the opening of the session. Chris Bolzano, myself, many other district staff, and some building staff have been meeting this fall with some of the interim legislative committees, both PED and PED committees, to provide our input on the issues that will be coming up this particular session. You will be able to see everything. We've been told you'll be able to see all of the committee meetings, and you will be able to watch the proceedings. Right now, it's anticipated that the Roundhouse will not be open to the public, and so the only attendance will be virtual attendance. And as this summer, when we had a lot of these committee meetings, there was a lot of technology issues. So I know they have really been struggling to get the technology all pulled together, and hopefully for the session, it will be in good shape, and you'll be able to see any committee meeting that you would like to see. Certainly the loss of revenue and the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit are important concerns that are looming over this particular legislature. And of course, we could see some changes in the makeup of the legislature as a result of the elections. So this will be an interesting session, and Chris is going to go into much more detail about it and share what he has learned, what he has heard, and then, of course, the most important part will be to get input from you on the legislative priorities. Next slide. I really can't stress enough in terms of the legislature, school districts are going to need some help from both the state and the federal government. in order to be able to provide the same level of service, the same level of instruction that we are providing right now. Certainly all the formulas for SEG, for transportation, none of those work now. None of them will be appropriate. None of them will function effectively. And so it's just really hard in our conversation with legislators to move beyond what's familiar and comfortable, to try to look at a different way of how we might fund our schools next year. They've been very open to that, and they've been really good listeners, but it's hard because we're kind of stuck in the way we've always done things. But those ways are not going to work this year. And certainly, as all districts are really stressing the need to retain our cash reserves, our fund balances, because of so many unexpected expenses, and especially if there's going to be any kind of a shortfall next year, and that shortfall is anticipated. And then, certainly with our legislature, we want to know what we can do to support them and communicate most effectively with them. We are very thankful for our delegation in Rio Rancho. They have always been very supportive of this school district, always really good listeners, and have tried so hard to meet our needs. And so we appreciate them, and we appreciate all that they do for our district. As I said, Chris has been working the interim to learn all the new rules. Nothing is quite the way it was last year, and to identify what their thoughts and priorities are, especially the leadership in the legislature. And so, as you are very much aware, many tentative agreements have already been made in the committees, and probably more so this year than in years past, because of the unusual session that we're going to have. And so, Chris will talk a little bit about what that will look like and what he knows and what he's hearing. And as I said, getting your input. We also have our food services contract. I just want to, to say a couple of words about that. Arlene will be presenting an extension of the food services contract for Sodexo. I just want to say again that Sodexo has been a partner in our district for many years, and we appreciate their hard work and their willingness to work with us, especially in these more challenging times. And you really think about, they've not only had to feed the kids at school, but they've had to feed the kids at home. Somebody had to figure out how to feed everybody, and any child that needed the food in the summer. They have had a lot of challenges, and they have stepped up. And as I said, they've always been willing to do that and always been willing to work well with us. So I just, want to personally say thanks to Sodexo for their hard work and for their willingness to always try to be part of the solution. And so their contract will be coming up this evening as well. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Noreen, do you have any comments or questions?
I do not.
Thank you. Wynn Coleman?
No, I don't, but thank you, Dr. Cleveland.
Okay. Catherine Cullen? Okay. And Jeffrey Morgan?
No questions. Thank you, Dr. Cleveland.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. And, and I just wanted a quick comment on, you were talking about everyone working so hard over the weekends, and I know as a board, we've been receiving messages and texts and phone calls about all the things happening when cases come up. And we truly are grateful that they are there to answer those calls and to work on that. So thanks for your presentation and your introductory comments, Dr. Cleveland.
Yeah, you're welcome. And let me just add one thing, in terms of the text, this weekend I started counting, and when I got to 10, I quit. It just gives you an idea of the volume of work that is going on from everybody across the district.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work. Okay, well, thank you. We'll now move to item E, to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations. One thing that needs to be changed real quick that was brought to my attention is when Chris Balzano presents to us our priorities and we have that discussion, it will be just a discussion and not an action. I just want to put that out there that will not be an action tonight. Yes, Wynn.
And one other thing, as far as the presenters tonight for the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee recommendation, Barbara Bruce needs to be included as one of the presenters.
Okay. Okay, Jane, can you make note of that for? Okay.
Yes,
Is there
I
anything
will.
else?
And my apologies.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Is there anything else that needs to be changed tonight? Okay. Okay. Well, with that, I move to approve the prioritized agenda with the change, with the adding of the presenter Barbara Bruce on our behavioral health report, and also that number C under business will be just a discussion tonight.
I'll second that motion. This is
Thank-
Board Member Scott.
Thank you, Board Member Scott. Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I will. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. For our public comment tonight, we have 3 public comments that were sent to the board. Each board member has received these public comments and has read them. They've also gone to different people in the district to help. We have, our first one was given by Andrea St. Clair, which is on concerns about AP Ingenuity classes. We also have one by Jolynn Pruitt, which is also on concerns about AP Ingenuity classes. And our third one is by Valerie Kilpack, asking for us to not wait for the governor to shut down schools, that we should shut them down. And those are our 3 public comments for tonight. For those who wish to give public comment to the board, you may go to the Rio Rancho Public Schools website, and if you click on district and then click on the school board, you'll find a form there that you can fill out and give public comment, and we appreciate receiving those. So thank you for those who have sent those in. Okay, now moving to item G, commendations. Our first will be presented by Melissa Perez, our communications manager, in regards to the Rio Rancho Education Foundation. Melissa?
Good evening, President Galbraith, school board members, and Dr. Cleveland. Thank you for letting me join you tonight. As you mentioned, my name is Melissa Perez. I am the communications manager for Rio Rancho Public Schools. And it is my pleasure tonight to be able to present a certificate of appreciation to the Rio Rancho Education Foundation. As the communications manager for the district, I do serve on their board as the liaison for the district. And what I can tell you is that from the very beginning, when COVID-19 became a huge part of everyone's life, the Rio Rancho Education Foundation board wanted to do something to help. Immediately, it was, what can we do? How can we help? Where does Rio Rancho Public Schools need assistance? In some discussions over the summer, what the board decided was to work with some personal protective equipment because they saw a great need there. So I am happy to report that just a few weeks ago, the Rio Rancho Education Foundation board delivered the last of their donation of PPE, which totaled approximately $12,000 in personal protective equipment. And that included disposable gowns for our staff. It included child size and adult size face masks. It included disposable gloves, as well as face shields for our staff. So items that are definitely needed, that we go through quite frequently, and that will help everyone from teachers to school nurses to special education staff members, all the way down to our students. So it really brings me a lot of joy to be able to say thank you to these folks and thank you for their generosity, but really more so, thank you for their willingness to help and for being a partner with the district, not just during COVID-19, but throughout every school year. So joining us tonight, we have Bill Stanage, who is the president of the Rio Rancho Education Foundation board, and Mike Mierzejewski, who is the vice president of their board. Gentlemen, would you like to say a few words?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for giving us a great district to work with. We're very proud of you guys, and we want to be there whenever you need us. The nice thing about the foundation is that we're able to get contributions from the private sector and get them to you to be used where there's an acute need at any time. Right now, we're working on some fundraising ideas, which you can just guess are going to be a challenge now. But the board has been tasked to throw some ideas in a hat, and we'll see what we can do to raise money to build our endowment so that we can continue to be a financial backstop for you guys whenever you need it. So again, thank you for doing a great job, you guys.
I just piggyback off of what Bill said. Thank you very much for the help that we've gotten from the district and our help that we can do for the district. It's a great working relationship, and I just, as the needs come in, last year we helped fund the communications lapse that was there as far as some Wi-Fi for when we had to go into panic mode as far as the COVID. So if there are any other needs that arise, please keep us abreast and see if we can fulfill those needs for the district and keep everybody safe and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I would like to give the board an opportunity to talk to you for just a moment. We'll start with Jeffrey Morgan, our Vice President.
I don't have any major comments. Just want to say thanks for your support and really appreciate the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Secretary Scott?
Yes, I would like to say thank you to the entire group of the foundation. They have done tireless work for many years, and I'm sorry that we don't get to recognize them more often. But thank you again for the PPE, and thank you for your assistance last year with the connectivity for some of our students who were not able to be connected any other way. So your continued efforts are very much appreciated.
Thank you, Secretary Scott. Catherine Cullen?
Hi, this is Catherine Cullen. Actually, Noreen said it perfectly. It is for all these years that you've helped us out. We really, truly appreciate it. And she pretty much captured exactly my sentiments. So thank you so much, Michael and Bill.
Thank you. And Wynn Coleman?
I just thank you. And as everybody said, I just appreciate everything that is done and what a great partnership and relationship. So thank you.
Thank you. And in a second, I'll let Dr. Cleveland, I'm sure she wants to say something too, but we can't do these things without our community. And we just truly, truly appreciate you all stepping up and helping us with these things. There are so many needs that we have right now as we go through this pandemic, and we truly can't do it without you. So thank you so much for doing that for our district. We appreciate it. Dr. Cleveland?
I would just say the same. Thank you so much. Yeah, we can't do it alone. And it's been a pretty tough time. And the foundation over many years has always been there when we needed it. And so we appreciate you and we appreciate the work you do. And this has certainly touched a lot of student and staff lives this year. And thank you. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Melissa, for presenting that today. We really, really appreciate it. Okay. And our next commendation will be presented by Jeffrey Morgan, our board vice president.
Thank you, Amanda. On behalf of the Rio Rancho Public School Board, the Rio Rancho Public School District, we wanted to take this time to give special recognition, commendations to our custodial staff, in appreciation for the early morning, late evening, and weekend efforts to get our schools ready. Let me give you a little more information on why we want to give these guys special recognition, referring to our custodial staff. They stepped up to ensure that our school facilities are safe. They are cleaning and disinfecting our buildings every day to try and minimize the spread of infections. Whenever a positive COVID-19 case is identified at any district site, the Department of Health determines what areas must be disinfected and cleaned. It can be a room, several areas of a building, or an entire school that must be disinfected. The custodial staff go in and get it done. I'm commending the custodial staff because Rio Rancho Public School custodial crews are the first ones to return to the area where there was a confirmed COVID positive case. They must wear protective gear to enter the area where the infection has been presented. The crews are disinfecting buildings before school, after school, evenings, and even weekends to ensure that the area is safe to reopen. Our custodians are sacrificing time with their own families to protect our students, staff, and families. The Rio Rancho Public School custodial teams are heroes in every sense of the word when we think about first responders and all the work that they do. They are not only working hard, but for going beyond what is normally required of their duties. Great job, custodial team. We really appreciate you for working to keep our schools, community safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff, for presenting that commendation. Board, would you like to add anything? I think Jeff does such a good job of, of doing that, so motivational. But would anyone like to add anything to Jeff's remarks there? Secretary Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you, Jeff, for doing such a great job of recognizing our team. It really is valuable to have those folks working as a team, and it's good to recognize folks. Thanks.
Thank you, Secretary Scott. And Catherine or Wynn, would you guys like to add anything?
I think Jeff said it all. So
I
thank
agree.
you.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And we love our custodial staff. They are heroes. We have so many heroes during this time. Okay. Moving on to our reports, we will have our first report, which is it's a board-created committee that was created sometime back. With COVID and everything, things weren't able to be presented, and so we're grateful that they are able to present to us tonight. It's our Behavioral Health Advisory Committee. Wynn Coleman will be, I believe, our main presenter of this. And Wynn, will you go ahead and introduce all who will be presenting with you tonight?
I will, and I'll go ahead. We have met a number of times, and so I will go over a couple of things, and then the individuals that are presenting will go ahead and introduce themselves. I do want to start out and just say thank you. As President Galbraith mentioned, it was a board formed committee that happened a little bit ago. It took a little bit of time to kind of figure out our lanes and got that all straightened out, and with guidance and support on making sure that we were really just looking at things in the best way for the district. It's just been, I do want to say that as you can see there on the on your screen, just an incredible group of committee members, from staff to administration. Catherine Cullen sat on the committee also, but we had people from the community members. We had licensed professional therapists that joined. And also too, we had people from Department of Health and even Rio Rancho Police Department. So everybody was just continued to just be active and engaged, and really just great input. I do want to point out that tonight the group came together, kind of the presenters came together after the committee kind of decided how we'd like to present this. Barbara Bruce, Charity Stallworthy, Shayna Clausen, Tana Burgos, Victoria Waugh-Reed, and myself. And you can see right there, our names are highlighted with red asterisks. So that is kind of the ad hoc committee that came together and prepared this presentation tonight, and a special thank you to them. So next slide, please. The one thing that I want to just say for everybody is that we know, and we knew from the very beginning, that the district is doing just just has a ton of things that are great resources for the emotional and mental health of our students and even our staff. What we really, some of the things that we just found is that there's just great partnerships. I think that we found as we kind of went through was that we're really doing probably, we're kind of ahead of the game as far as our relationship with the Department of Health and coordinating youth mental health first aid and teen mental health first aid for students. It's just been just great to see that. We did go ahead just to kind of explain what the committee was doing, is that we did originally look at on probably a national level, districts that really were recognized for what they were doing for the social and emotional well-being of students. And really what we came to find out is that the underlying commonality is just the framework that we're going to present tonight and give as a recommendation to be implemented for the district. And so I will go ahead and pass this off to Tana Burgos, who was a part of the ad hoc committee and a part of our committee. So Tana, if you'd like to go ahead and take over. And then Jane, if you could go to the next slide, please.
So Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland, it is Tana Burgos, the Executive Director of Student Services. And our goals really for this group was to look at really what we're inserting for mental behavioral health in all our existing systems. And as we know, mental health is for everyone. It doesn't matter who it is, and especially during these times, it's very hard for everyone being at home, our secondary students, and even in a hybrid model can be very difficult. And so one of the things that I think is also important about these goals is that it's just not one person, it's a team. And if you saw that group that has come together, it really is about strategic partnership and really working together to what are we looking at as our environmental factors, as what is going on with our impact with mental health, and how do we look at our policies, and how do we in the future shape our mental health outcomes and supports. And also in this, it really brings it all together because we want to look at greater academic success. We want to look at our disciplinary practices. We want to look at improved climate and safety, and all of those things we are working on. But I think we always want to say, how can we be better? That's something that Rio Rancho Public Schools has always strived for is, yes, we are good and we are doing great things, and let's get better every day. So our goals are really to create open attitudes, beliefs, and culture of the whole child, all children, all students. And as I said before, look at those programs and how we're delivering to all of our students. And I think one of the really important things about what's being presented tonight is that this is free. It's not costing us any money. And it's looking at what we're already doing really, really well, and then filling in those gaps. And we'll talk a little bit throughout this presentation by other team members. But what does that look like for the future? How does it look like how we spend our money for social emotional learning, for counselors, for social workers? We are doing a phenomenal job already at that. We have added positions over the years. We have looked at programs. We've really looked at supporting our students. And so we just want to know, how can we make it better as we move along? So I'm going to introduce Shana Glasson, and she is the statewide behavioral health consultant for the New Mexico Department of Health, and also the Office of School and Adolescent Health. And she will be presenting the next slide.
Thank you so much, Shauna, Wynn, and the board. Again, my name is Shana Clausen. I'm the statewide behavioral health consultant with the Office of School and Adolescent Health, and incredibly grateful to get to work with the district in many different avenues, especially this and and everything else Tana is doing with implementing teen mental health first aid and all of those things. This framework that we're introducing to you all, I want you to remember the word framework, and when you see the word curriculum on the screen, replace it with the word framework. This is not one more thing that we want to add on to people's plates. We know that their plates are already overflowing with what we have going on, and I want to take a second and acknowledge that. The last thing we want to do is say, hey, here's this one more thing that we think you should add on to your jobs that we know you don't have time to do. This is a framework, like Tana said, that makes what you're already doing work together. And it provides an evaluation process to tell us what's working and what maybe isn't having the impact that we want it to. So a little bit of history for you. The National School of Mental Health developed a curriculum for behavioral health in schools. This curriculum was co-developed by the Mental Health Technology Transfer Centers, MHTTC, which you see up there on the screen, and the network for the National Center for School Mental Health, located at the University of Maryland. Within these two entities, they created this framework for how to do behavioral health in schools. And this is A to Z, from how, if and whether I am a food service worker, or I am custodian, or I'm in education, or I work in the front office, behavioral health is a part of my job. So how do I look at my job through those behavioral health lenses? Everything to communicating with parents, to universal mental health promotion, like Tana talked about, really treating the whole child, to how do we sustain things like this within our district, funding and sustainability, and again, highlighting that it's free. So you'll see the link up there on the screen. If you're interested, and we encourage you to go in and peruse around the framework, which you have access to just by going into that link there. Next slide, please. So talking about evaluation is critical. We have to understand where we are right now before we can decide where we want to go. I think we can all agree that we know that the health of our children, both mental and physical health, is incredibly important. And not only our children, but our staff and our families and our communities and everybody, right? That being said, we have to be able to evaluate where we're at to decide where we want to go. So why is data-driven decision-making so important? You see up here on your screen, and I won't read it to you, a lot of the reasons why data-driven decision-making is so important. We know that mental health is a big deal, but why? What do the numbers look like? What does it look like for Rio Rancho Public Schools? We can look at the data and be able to identify the student mental health needs within our district to get them to the appropriate services and evaluate the impact of those services. All of these things allow us to be able to evaluate where we're at and decide where we want to go. The collection and use of data in decision-making monitors the student need and progress through assessment all the way through implementation, and then evaluating the impact of the programs that we already have in place, or maybe things that we're looking at implementing and putting into place. There are a variety of different sources of data in schools. And how do we put all of these things together? And I know what you're thinking, in what time, right? What time am I supposed to do this? How do we put all of these things together and evaluate it? I will tell you. Next slide, please. So within this framework, of course, comes an evaluation tool. I will start by saying that this is also free. There is no cost associated to any of this. The SHAPE assessment, which is the School Health Assessment and Performance Evaluation System, and you'll see the link up there on the screen, is connected to that behavioral health curriculum. It's connected because it is a free evaluation platform that was also developed by the National Center for School Mental Health in partnership with the field to increase the quality and sustainability of comprehensive school mental health systems. It allows the school and the district at both levels, the district level and the building level, to evaluate the existing mental health practices and programs that are in place and identify areas for improvement. Tana said it perfectly. We've got to be able to see where we're at, right? So this is not a test. This is not an evaluation. This isn't something that we're grading schools on. This is their report. And what they do is, when they do it at the school level, and ideally every single school does it at the school level, and then the district does one at the district level to evaluate, of course, different things, right? At the school level, we're really looking at the program levels of the different programs that are in place at the school level and what has the biggest amount of impact. At the district level, we're focusing more on the policies and procedures that we have in place right now and what's benefiting us and where can we fill in those gaps? And I love things that are color-coded, and this is incredibly simple. It's color-coded, and it's quite quick to do it. It has 8 quality domains, which we'll talk about here on the next slide, if you could flip to that. So you'll see, 7. It's been a long Monday. You'll see the 7 quality domains up there on the screen. Those quality domains are the same quality indicators that that framework is built upon. So it assesses and evaluates each one of those quality domains. I will tell you right now, as the site administrators for New Mexico for the SHAPE assessment, Rio Rancho Public Schools is so much farther along than sometimes I think you all think you are. You all are doing absolutely incredible things. This is not a score. This is not a judgment. This is something to say, where are our gaps and where can we fill in those gaps? So maybe you do your report, and again, color coded, right? Green, yellow, red. And you get a red, and maybe we need to focus and I'm just picking one randomly. Maybe we need to focus a little bit more on teaming, right, within our district. And then you go to the curriculum, right, and you go to the teaming section, and it gives you examples, evidence-based tools. Everything in here is evidence-based. We know it works. Free tools to be able to utilize, examples of other districts across the nation who have done things to enhance teaming within their district. So it's quite simple. And it's something that can be done quite quickly and can be done on an annual basis. That being said, each module has resources. It has a tab right on the top slide when you go through. So you know where to work, and you pick one and you start chipping away at that. It really provides an overview of what your school is doing and where we can fill in the blank. The last example I want to give you, and I'll pass it over to our team member, domain 3, which is mental health promotion. When we look at that, Rio Rancho is so far ahead of the game. They have not only implemented youth mental health first aid across the board in Rio Rancho Public Schools, thanks to Tana and her team and all of the hard work, but we've also been one of the 5 in the nation to be accepted for the teen mental health first aid curriculum, which is absolutely incredible. And we highlight the district everywhere we go that teen mental health first aid is one of the first districts in the nation to be able to implement this. How awesome is that? And then to get it in a data-driven way to then be able to maybe use for funding requests or whatever to be able to sustain what you all are doing. So I will turn it over to Charity, who's going to go over how this might look for the district.
Hello, I'm Charity Stallworthy. I'm the 6th grade counselor at Eagle Ridge Middle School. So next we're going to talk about what are our goals? What is the upcoming years going to look like for implementing the SHAPE assessment? So all schools in the district will complete the SHAPE assessment at program level. The district will also complete a SHAPE assessment. We're going to have the leadership team at each school and at the district level are going to guide the assessment taking and the implementation both at the district and school level. There's 8 modules in each SHAPE assessment. It takes about 15 minutes max. And then once we've taken the assessment, we're going to give the results over to the Department of Health, which will go through the results, the data, and present an overview to us. The big thing to look at is this is not an area where it's a competition between schools or grading. It's to identify gaps and look at what are we already doing? What are we already doing well? Is there ways we can streamline what we're doing and identify what can be our true impact? Next slide, please. And then the Department of Health will provide the district with an overview of results. Teams for the schools are going to meet 4 times a year as a large group for all the mental health teams as needed. And then teams for the district are going to meet in between the school meetings. So coming up in the school year 21-22, Department of Health will assist individual schools to complete the implementation guide. What is their plan for the next year? What are they going to focus on? Help assist and complete the implementation guide, and then determine what come to work on first. What are we going to identify first? Because we can't do everything at the same time. So next I will have Barbara Bruce take over the next slide.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Bruce, and I'm a retired Rio Rancho Public Schools principal and currently the president of the board for the NAMI New Mexico. And for those of you who are a little bit unfamiliar with NAMI, we are the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We're actually the largest grassroots organization in the country. We educate, support, and advocate for people with mental illness as well as their families. And I just wanted to point out this, to me, all of these slides are important, but this is a really critically important slide. One of the 5 areas of NAMI National and the NAMI New Mexico strategic plans focus on early intervention for those with mental illness. And it's important to understand why. We currently know that in the United States, 1 in 5 people will have a serious mental illness in their lives. And we also know that in New Mexico, that rate is actually 1 in 4. We also know that even though those are high, 80% of these people will not get help for up to 10 years due to such things as stigma, lack of services, and those types of items. Another thing that we know is currently our national suicide rate is at 30% due to COVID during this COVID times. And I had the pleasure through NAMI last year, I served on a similar task force for RRPS, and I found it really amazing, something as a principal that I pretty much knew. I've worked in elementary, middle schools, and high schools, and their data in RRPS last year showed that the highest levels of suicidal ideation were in their 4th and 7th grades. Sometimes we forget that. As a principal, I was aware that kids always sometimes start dropping out. It's not uncommon as early as 4th grade, but we don't actually see them drop out until they're in high school when they physically can drop out. So I just wanted to give you another little, some statistics of things that are out there. The CDC Communicable Disease Control Director, Robert Redfield, did a mental health survey and recently. And in the age group of 18 to 24-year-olds, which are typically just a little out of our range for school, but actually it gives us, I think, a lot of insight into what our students are feeling as well. Within those kids or young people, I should say, young adults in the 18 to 24-year-old group, 49% of them expressed that they had anxiety. 52.3% had depressive disorders of some type. And 25.5% of them had thoughts of suicide within the last 10 days. So we know that we are dealing with something critical. As you can imagine, I am super familiar with all of the curriculum background, but we cannot get our curriculum and help kids go further until we address some of the mental health needs as well. I just want to thank Wynn Coleman for putting together such an amazing team. We had a lot of really important people with very knowledgeable ideas. And also Tana Burgos, because she is, her department and her team are already doing so much. And I just wanted to say that I am really in favor of the SHAPE framework, because it will help provide valuable information on gaps. and provide guides for us to move to our next steps. And with that, I'd like to turn the next slide over to Jenny Cook.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Cook. I am the counselor at Independence High School. This process is not a fast one. It's going to take us some time to answer what the impact will have. We're looking at about probably a 3 to 5 year process in order to see what we have, to do some implementation, and to look at our processes again, and then implement something else, and so on. So it's going to be a little work up front, but it'll make for a lot of less work later. We won't really see these impacts until later because our data will start to show it later. But mental health issues are a barrier to academic success. And I think that's, one of the things that Barbara touched on in the last slide. So if we develop a true tier 1 mental health system in Rio Rancho Public Schools, we will have a larger impact because we'll be touching all students rather just the ones that need the mental health support at the higher levels. So that's really what our focus is. We want to see what our gaps are and what our opportunities are to improve so that our processes are more efficient and they work better. And then next slide, please. Okay, so to show you the proposed timeline, this school year, we're asking the schools to complete the SHAPE assessment by the end of March 2021. And then the district level team will complete it as well. After that is finished, we will give that to our Department of Health representatives, and they will review the results and they will look at implementation. We will come back next school year. They will present those findings to the district level teams, and we will work on implementation. What we're asking of schools and the district is to choose just one area, one element to work on for that first year. Once they put that into process, then we can do the SHAPE assessment again and see how that's working and so on. So this will be an ongoing process. It's hard to say where it will go because we need to see what our results are, but at each step, we will do the assessment again and again to see if we're improving. I will now turn it over to Tana Burgos to wrap it up.
Thank you, Jennifer. So one of the things I think is important to note, and I believe it was mentioned, but if it was not, I just want to reiterate that the SHAPE assessment that's done at the district and the school level really only takes about 45 minutes. And that is what typically a counselor or a team is, and the administration is looking at and going through it. And it's just an online document that they're filling it out that is information for themselves as to what they see that they're doing and things that they can improve on. So this last slide before we get to questions, if you do have any, really is just highlighting some districts around the United States that we looked at as a team. And one of the really interesting things, though, when you look at these 4 districts that we've highlighted here, which you have Boston Public Schools, you have Mental Health Colorado, you have the Wisconsin School Mental Health Framework, and Omaha Public Schools, is we actually looked and said, wait, we're doing so many of the things that they're doing. So that was really encouraging for us as a team and for Rio Rancho Public Schools to, when we went into these, to say, we thought, oh gosh, we must be missing a lot of things, but we really weren't. We really were doing a lot of what they already are doing. But what we saw is how could we have more partnerships? How could we have more community partnerships? How could we have more collaboration with agencies within our community? Because that was probably one of the biggest things that I noticed, and I believe other people on our team saw that these school districts were doing. So I think that's something to think about, but it's not that, we went, oh my gosh, they're doing everything so much better than us. We really were doing a lot that was similar. So next slide, please. Which is questions.
And
so,
Tana,
yes.
Tana, I apologize. I just wanted to go ahead, if I may, and apologize for interrupting, but I just wanted to give Also, too, maybe the opportunity if the Department of Health, if Shayna wanted to just maybe say a little bit and then open up for questions also, if that's okay.
Go ahead, Shayna.
Thank you, Tana. Thank you, Wynn. No, I really appreciate everybody, and this team's work has been absolutely incredible. I want to highlight a couple of things just to end us all with. This is something that does not create more work for the district and for the school level. What it does is it evaluates the work that's happening, and it gets rid of the work that doesn't have the impact that we want it to, and it makes everything talk together. The national framework and the SHAPE assessment work together to streamline our processes, to make the most out of the funding that we have dedicated to school health and school behavioral health, and to be able to sustain and make a universal impact across the district. Again, and Tana highlighted it perfectly. I'm glad you said that. The SHAPE assessment, 15 minutes a module. The only other thing I wanted to highlight is in part of this process, the role of the Department of Health is not oversight, is not telling the district what to do. We're your tour guides through this. We've been trained as in this curriculum and in this framework and in the SHAPE assessment to help districts walk through this with implementation. We're here to connect you with other districts across the nation that have implemented this, give you suggestions of what to do next. But at the end of the day, we're not telling you what to do at all. We're here because we want to help you be able to go through this process. And our role can be as little or as much as you like. That being said, there will be a team at each school, and this can be an already existing team, whether it's a school wellness team or what have you. And this interdisciplinary team is the team that's really going to lead this process at the building level. And the same thing, we'll have a team at the district level to lead this process. That being said, it's those teams that are going to complete the SHAPE assessment on an annual basis that will meet with us for guidance, to ask questions, to do all of those things, and then help really drive the implementation of whatever you all decide to start working on in next once we get into school year 21-22. So that being said, I just wanted to clarify what the Department of Health's role is it is whatever you want it to be. We're here to help you through this. We're here to be able to, we didn't want folks to feel that they were being tested or quizzed or judged or evaluated in any way, shape, or form. Tana said it perfectly. This is your data. You look at it, you use that data, however it works for you. This is nothing that the Department of Health is reporting or anything like that. This is your data to inform your work. We're here as the information experts to be able to help guide you through the process. So thank you so much for letting us present today.
So with that being said, any questions that you all have for any of us, we are here and to answer anything that you might have for us this evening.
Okay, thank you so much for that presentation, and thank you, Wynn Coleman, for all the hard work that you put into this advisory committee. I have a degree in public health, and so as I'm listening through everything, I'm like, yes, like these are all wonderful things to hear, and I think it sounds like a great program that you guys found. So we'll go to the board, and then after I go through the board, Dr. Cleveland, we'd like to hear from you, but we'll start with Noreen Scott.
Well, I'd like to thank you for a really good presentation. And Wynn, I'd like to thank you for taking the leadership and the passion to keep us focused on this, because I think it's critical. And now more than ever that we're looking at mental health and how are we going to deal with it within our schools. So I thank you very much. It was a very good presentation.
Okay, thank you. And then Catherine Cullen.
Well, I don't have any questions. As part of the committee, and when I'm so grateful that you came, when we talked about starting this committee, when you came to me about starting this and kind of looking at what you were going to do. And I think this went beyond my wildest dreams of what we could do. And this evaluation process would be very good for the district to see where we are, see where, again, we're doing a great job, but where some gaps might be, and seeing a consistency across the district on the programs and the help that we get our students, and really working with the outside agencies that can help with our students, because we do see that as big need across the state. We're seeing that it is hard to get care, mental health care for students. It is very challenging and it's hard to navigate. So I think this is, it's going to be a process, but it is going to be a great process to go through. And it will certainly benefit our students. So thank you, Wynn, so much for everything that you do. And all those committee members, there's a lot of presentations, a lot of work that they put into this committee as well. So I appreciate everything that everybody did on this committee.
Thanks.
Thanks, Catherine. And Jeffrey Morgan.
To Board Member Wynn and your team, just want to say fantastic job. Very good work. I do have one question. To Barbara, she revved off a lot of statistics. My question is, do we have any success statistics that show where these numbers could have been had it not been for a program like this? She alluded to the fact that, and none of us are excited about the fact that the suicide rate is up 30%, but could it have been worse had it not been a program like this? Do we have any numbers to show some of the successes or some of the wins that we are having with some of these kids?
Yes. Okay. I wasn't sure I was on. Yes, sir. I would say that, some of those statistics I was giving you was during COVID. And so we don't have necessarily immediate answers to what's happening as a result of COVID. We do. I know there are many studies out there and many highly ranked doctors that are saying that we're going to be facing the repercussions from COVID for quite a long time. And we may not even exactly know what all of those are. But we have many programs that are already in your schools. We have programs, I have to say, through NAMI New Mexico, that we do have Ending the Silence, which has shown is evidence-based and has shown very great results in helping. I personally am very appreciative that you all are taking this not as just one program at a time, but are really looking at what you're doing totally throughout the district at all different levels, because every child is so different and every family is so different. So we know one thing that we absolutely know is that the earlier the intervention, the better. That's your best statistic to look at. The longer that it goes on, especially with things, with any mental illness, but in particularly with depression, we know that it gets much worse each time a person has an episode. And if they're not being treated and medicated correctly, and it's not always medication, but usually they go hand in hand. Did I answer that for you?
Yes, that's good. That's good. I know the statistic. It's early. You're 100% correct. I was just looking for some big wins with regard to statistics.
And I believe, Vice President Morgan, that Shana probably can speak to even kind of sharing some of those numbers also. So Shana, are you still with us?
I am. And thank you, Vice President Morgan. It's a wonderful question. And I see where you're going with that. Absolutely. What's the impact of this framework? I can give you a short answer to that, and then happy to give harder statistics at another point that will of course pass through Wynn and on up to you all. We know that in districts and schools across the nation that have implemented this framework have had overall better outcomes, have had fewer special education referrals, and a decreased need for restrictive placements. We know that they have increased student engagement and feelings of connectedness to the school. And there's growing data to support the accessibility of impact of school and mental health. We know that when students participated in these social emotional learning programs that have been implemented by assessing and then utilizing the framework, they do better academically and socially than those who don't. Positive school climate and social emotional learning improves school safety and decreases bullying. Now, the specific numbers, of course, are going to look different depending all over the nation, depending on the state and the school that implement that. That being said, that is a culmination of findings after schools and districts have implemented this process from evaluation to implementing the framework.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, and in just a second, I'm going to let Dr. Cleveland talk, but, and I just kind of want to go back, and this is a discussion time, and we're not voting on anything, and this is an advisory committee that Wynn, put together, and so as Dr. Cleveland speaks here in just a second, I want to ask her too, Dr. Cleveland, and probably Tana would probably be helpful with this too, is, what does it look like for our district to actually be able to implement this, this sort of tool? I think we are interested in, I'd love to hear more from the board as saying that everything sounds really, really good. But as far as implementing, that comes from the district and from Dr. Cleveland and, and Tana, who works with these sort of things. So, so how does that look as far as with our district being able to implement some of these programs?
So, Madam President, to answer that question for you, basically the SHAPE assessment really does just tell us what are we doing well, and then where are the gaps. And so what I would want to look at is what programs do we have in the district that we are using on our campuses, and how are they actually being effective on our campuses, which I believe many of them are. But the teams at each school need to go through that SHAPE assessment, which is a framework, and look and see what is working and what is not, and what are things that need to be added. So I can't give you 100% complete plan, because that's why you're doing the SHAPE assessment, is that you want your teams to go in, and you want the district to go in and have our team and look at we're doing this. Oh, I see a gap here. How would we fill that gap? Would we go to an outside agency? Would we team with a hospital? So I think it really depends on where those gaps are, and then talking about that as a district is how we fill them. So that's a general answer. I hope that answered your question.
No, I think definitely. And so what I'm hearing though is that the district is willing to go ahead and do that SHAPE assessment, at least to get us started. Is that what we're?
I think that's what we're recommending, because it will give us some information, and we'll be able to then take that information and decide where do we want to go from here.
And if I may, this is Board Member Coleman. I just wanted to also point out that in doing this assessment, because we all know that the demographics of each school is different, that we'll find, I would assume, that there are some areas where a completely separate standalone school will have an area that they want to work on, and that might be different for another school. And so, but then what's nice is that this also allows for the district as a whole to just kind of give that overview. So I will go ahead and kind of wrap that up. So I don't know if that answers your question, Amanda, also.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. And Dr. Cleveland, go ahead.
Well, I think, and again, thank you everyone for your presentation, for the thought that you put into this, and identifying what we know is an issue in our schools and our communities and our country, and in terms of the mental health of our young people and our families. I think that in terms of the implementation of it, I had to smile a little bit when somebody said it's not one more thing, but it is one more thing. And that's how schools are going to see it. And so I think it's really important that we make the case and that we share a lot of the information you've shared, because it's the why. And it's what the expectations, what we'll get out of it, and why sometimes you have to do things up front to benefit long term. You have to make, you have to spend a little time here to get a whole lot of something a little later. But we are facing accreditation this year. We have several, we're getting ready to do another assessment. And so I think it's important that we have those conversations with people in the building so they really understand exactly what the intent is. That being said, unless we explain it well, it will be just one more thing to them. And that won't necessarily be initially well received. So I think we got a little work to do there. Secondly, I do think though, and someone said it earlier, we have a lot of needs right now, and COVID is exacerbating those needs. Now, I have shared with a few folks that the Great Depression shaped my grandparents and my parents for their entire lives. It was an event that their entire lives were shaped by it. I believe that young people today are going to be shaped by COVID and many of the things that they're experiencing now, and it will influence them for the rest of their lives. And so looking at how we help and support our students and our families, not only through COVID, but through a lot of other things as well, it is important. And so I think, we really need to have some conversation with people in the schools who've not been privy to all of this information so that they can understand what the intent was. And if there's ever a group that's very persuasive and very good at getting the ear of the staff, it's our counselors. And so it's wonderful to see a lot of our counselors on this team because people have a lot of faith and trust in them. And so I think they will be instrumental in helping the staff understand the value of this and what we hope to gain over time by this. And the other, I think that's been mentioned this evening is it's not a short fix. That we're going to do something and then all of a sudden everything's going to be just fine. It's something that's going to take several years of investment, several years of effort, and it's a great step in the right direction to meeting the needs of our students. So that's kind of a convoluted approach, but that's, I hadn't seen it before, and it was really good information. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of going to be an ongoing discussion that we should possibly have. Once again, I just want to thank Wynn for putting this together. Just during this time of COVID in the last few months, I myself know 2 people who have committed suicide. One, a young person, another, someone who is my age, and it is a very difficult time for a lot of people. And so I do think that this kind of came in at an appropriate time. We always struggle with these things, as we know, but it's definitely showing itself, manifesting itself more. One thought that I had, and is I don't, we're talking about that shape assessment, and so maybe we take that shape assessment and at some point we make some sort of, we can make some sort of policy that would, maybe not necessarily putting shape in there as the assessment, but that this is something that we will assess yearly or something like that. I'm just trying to think of the best way to kind of go from here. And so maybe right now is, this is of course the advisory committee, to us and to the district. And perhaps Tana and Dr. Cleveland, as this kind of moves a little bit further into the district, we can kind of look at creating something like that, if it's even needed. I don't know. Does anyone want to talk more to that? I'm hoping I'm making sense and not just rambling.
Well, I think Tana addressed it very well, but there's got to be a plan from here. I mean, these are ideas, and a plan has to come out of that. Tana, I'm sorry, Catherine, did you want to comment first? Yeah. I'm having a hard time. As you can see, I don't have my regular glasses. I left them at the office, and I have these old glasses, and I can't find anything on the screen, and it's just driving me crazy. So, apologies. But it's too bad to go back and get them.
If I may, I think that to respond to President Galbraith's comments, that I think that really having a policy really creates sustainability in this process and I don't know exactly what that would look like, but as a district, I really just think that really just supports sustainability and our commitment to the well-being at the social and emotional level of our students.
And I would just add, oh, I'm sorry, Catherine, you go. You've been waiting. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Well, I was just going to say, because this is addressed as a report. And so when the committee come to us, are they looking, because we didn't make it as an action item, so is the committee just recommending to do this shape, or are they just going to go ahead and push forward through the administration process? Because this is a board committee. And I'll tell you for me and how we get this out to the counselors and the teachers. I mean, and I don't think anybody can deny this. We are at a mental health crisis in the United States, and especially in this state. So I don't think that we would have to sell this to the schools. I think that they know, they're in the trenches with our students. They know we're in a crisis level. And so, but I think for the board itself, on how we approach this, since this is a report, where do we go from here as the board? Because this is a board committee. This is formed by the board, run by and actually, I think it was a year-long committee, I think I would have to look at the policy again. So we may have to extend out this committee. I think we need to look at that too as well. But since this is the first report from them coming back. So Tana, I guess that's the question for you, because we don't have it as a voting. Is this something that the administration can just push out to the schools to have it for them to do? Or do we need to bring this back as forward as the board and have it voted on that's what the board's directive is?
I actually think that's an answer for Dr. Cleveland or Lauren to answer that piece. But so I can let them answer that. But I quickly just wanted to say, I think it's good practice on a yearly basis to analyze how we're doing as a district in any area. And we do it in so many different areas. So I really see it as a positive. It's not a negative to be able to say, okay, how are we doing this year? And then each year just reassessing that. And it might be that we're doing everything great, or maybe we need to add some more components in. So I think it's a good practice. That's just my feedback. But I'm not sure, Dr. Cleveland, on how it needs to be presented, as the board needs to approve it or make a decision. I will let you speak to that.
Well, I think it can go the regular route. The board's role is policy. And so Wynn addressed that earlier. And so it may be that the board would want to do a policy related to having a program. I would recommend the board not specify the program, though certainly we would bring that back in a plan. But that's the normal process. The board puts the policy in place, and then the administration comes back with a plan on how to make that happen. And shares that information with the board and gets the board's involvement and input. And so perhaps the first step would be a policy, that we would have a program, a mental health program or framework, or however you would want to address it. And then let the administration come back with a plan to the board on how to make that a reality.
Okay. Lauren, are you on? I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I am on. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland. This is Lauren Hatch, the General Counsel. Yeah, I would agree. I think the ideal process here, now that there's been a thorough investigation of what could or ought to be done, the end product probably should be a policy, either a revision to an existing policy, or maybe even a new policy that kind of directs the work of the school district in this area.
So we're not voting on anything, but can I make an assignment possibly for someone to just kind of work with someone at the district to give ideas, like Wynn could work with Tana to kind of look at policy and kind of what we're thinking, and then perhaps draft something with you, Lauren? Is that a good plan? Or
absolutely.
Okay. That would work. And generally our process right now, Madam President, is most of our policies, Tana works with Lauren, and then we work with a third person who has an interest in that particular policy. So if it'd be, agreeable, I think it would be good to have Wynn and Tana and Lauren sit down and go through and look at what we really want in terms of a policy, then bring that back to the entire board to either approve or not approve.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Go ahead, Wynn.
Yes, this is Board Member Coleman. And I completely understand. And Lauren was very instrumental along with Tana in sitting down, and Catherine was there and really kind of understanding the lanes that we are in, that we stay in. So that being said, I really believe that there's an opportunity to really kind of look at a policy. I would guess, and I'd like to just ask Shayna from the Department of Health if the assessment, if we're able to find, if she would know of some districts that have policies in place that we might just kind of take a look at in relation to this. But then at that point, we knew that whatever we came up with, because we know that boards look at policy, budget, and superintendent relations, that anything that we'd have as a recommendation would have to be implemented at the administration and district level. So that's kind of how this all has kind of played out. But I see that Shayna's on there, and she might be able to see if there's a way to go ahead and find other districts that have policies in place.
Sure. Thank you, Wynn. Absolutely. We can, that's 100% our role. We're here as a resource. So let us know how we can help. This is a way that we can help. We have great relationships with those example school districts that Tana highlighted, Omaha Public Schools probably being the most recent. But what this collaboration of folks across the nation within the mental health technology transfer centers is that huge pot of resources. So we absolutely have access to other districts that have put policies that you're speaking about, President Galbraith, in place. So we can get sample policies, we can get suggestions or ideas of what that language sounds like, and then you all can decide how you want to implement it. Or like you said, either put it into an existing policy or write a new one. I also agree, as long as we're not, I don't think naming anything is important, but focusing on the implementation of data-driven evaluation and the implementation of evidence-based practices. And that's incredibly important. So we're happy to resource that team that you referenced, Wynn, Tana, Lauren, whoever, with some sample policies that you all could look at and see if it works for your district.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. We'd really appreciate that. So thank you. So when are you willing to accept that assignment to start looking at that?
I do.
Okay, thank you. I know, but I just want to make sure. And in saying that too, I think it's really important that, as Dr. Cleveland was talking about, things are really crazy right now. And so I think there's a lot of this that can just kind of start to go into effect. Tana was saying that, the assessment isn't that difficult to start doing without, this policy going into place. And so I just want to make sure that we don't burden as we go through this. And so we understand it might take some time, but if you'd be willing to do that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. And I apologize for interrupting Board Member Coleman again. I just, it will be really important, the delivery of this process, and really creating that message and really instilling in everybody the idea that this amount of time right now will play out for itself very well as we kind of go through this, the year, the next year, and minimize maybe some things that we might be doing that maybe we could do better, and really then highlighting the things that we're doing very well, and just kind of, maybe answering some questions that people might have or wonder. So.
Okay. Dr. Cleveland or Noreen Scott, I see you're unmuted. Let me give you a second.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Tana, the way I understood the presentation, this was sort of going to be integrated into an already existing program. And so it might not really require all that much more. It's really just putting a framework around what we're already doing. Did I understand that properly?
So it's really, I think, important. Sometimes we all get confused, I know, with counseling when we're talking about programs and frameworks. And so it is a framework that you go in and it's online and you fill in, and Shana can also speak to this as well, where you fill in what you are doing. So it's not, the shape is not it's not a program. It's a framework of what are the things you are doing, you're capturing, and what are the things that you need to fill in your gaps. And so it might be, let's say we have so many different programs that we do use on our campuses, but Second Step, for instance, that's a program we use. So that would be entered into your, basically your evaluation that you're filling out, and you'd be listing the programs you use as for an answer to a question. But then there might be another question that you aren't doing something. And so how do you fill in that gap? Does that make sense?
Well, it does, but I guess what I'm driving at is the amount of time. And,
okay.
and what I was understanding is that you're already doing a lot of this. This is just putting a framework around it, sort of
Correct.
like packaging up what's already being done.
Yes, thank you. I misunderstood what you were asking. So yes, you're basically, the framework is saying everything that you are doing already. So when you're filling that out, it is 15 minutes per modular, and you're just saying, this is what we're doing. You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
And if I can add, so I'm so sorry.
You're good. Go ahead, Shana.
No, thank you. I'm so sorry. No, in reference to your question, you're absolutely correct. It is, I don't want to say it's a lot of work, and you're absolutely correct. There's more work in the beginning is going to result in less work in the long term. And we want to be really clear about that. And Superintendent Cleveland, you absolutely said it beautifully. We don't want to put the wool over anybody's eyes that there isn't going to be work involved. Of course there is. But at the end of the day, we do all this work so it has impact on our students and our families. That's why we do the work. So if we're going to put our blood, sweat, and tears into everything we do, let's make sure those things have the most amount of impact. And you said it perfectly, of this framework puts everything together to measure within those quality indicators what has impact and what doesn't. So ultimately, it creates a streamlined process.
Okay, thank you.
So
go ahead, Catherine. Sorry.
My question is, so are you guys, is Lauren and Dr. Cleveland saying that we need to have a policy in place before they proceed with the shape at all the district level and all the schools?
I don't think I'll let Dr. Cleveland speak, but I don't think they're necessarily saying that. I think it's more just if we want to put something, just because as a board, that's what we do is policy. But go ahead, Dr. Cleveland.
So I was trying to figure out how to move this forward.
I don't think you need a policy. We've already been doing so many of these things without a policy in order to move forward. I think what I heard in the discussion was that the policy gives it greater sense of urgency and a greater, we need to get this done. And so policies have that, that one of the roles of the board is to set the policies, which sets the direction for the district. And so this is saying, I believe in a policy that we have a commitment to looking at mental health as we move forward into the future. And so I think we could do this without a policy. I don't think a policy is essential at all. But I do think it creates a greater sense of urgency, and it says very strongly the board is behind this initiative. It's not just an administrative initiative, but it's also a board initiative. And I think on top of that, in terms of the presentation this evening, there's a community initiative. A lot of community people had a part in it as well. So I don't think the policy is required, but I think there could be some value in doing a policy in the sense of saying to everyone, this is an important priority for the district and for the board. That being said, it has to be done within the framework of what we're in right now, and understanding that we have a lot on the plate. We have an awful lot on the plate, but people will step up and do what needs to be done when they understand the why and where it's going and they see value in it. And that was my comments about the messaging needs to be very clear as to this isn't just one more thing to do that we have dreamed up for you to do. It is something that we do. We all see the urgency. To Catherine's point earlier, everyone sees the urgency. We all see mental health issues. But I think we are going to have to move very judiciously with schools who have so much on the plate right now and are feeling so overwhelmed. And my last comment is, and I think Shana said very well, sometimes you do a lot up front to go, to hope to go faster later on. And that's, we've got to decide what we could do reasonably to build that foundation to go faster later on. But I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that the staff right now in the buildings are overwhelmed, not just a little overwhelmed, big time overwhelmed. And so it is important that we have those conversations about how to proceed with the people out there that are going to have to be meaningful partners in this in order to make it work. So I think we're saying the same thing. I don't hear that we're saying anything really different among any of the people who've spoken.
Okay, so with that, if we could just go ahead and start exploring that policy, when can start looking at that, and like I said, understanding everything that's going on with that, and then we'll have a discussion again about it if that's where the board wants to go. So we'll probably just check in with you when, even possibly before things get put in, just to kind of see how it's going and if it's worth doing that, if that sounds okay.
Yes, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Okay. Board, is there anything else on this before we go on to our next report? Okay, we'll go on to our next report. Thank you so much, Board Member Coleman. Again, thank you everyone for the discussion, and thank you all who presented tonight. We really appreciate, once again, like our community, we really appreciate our community that comes out and helps us as we go through these things. So thank you for being here. Our next report is on the teacher intern pilot program, an update to the board. We will have Mike Chavez, our Executive Director of Human Resources, presenting, along with Peggy Johnston, our Human Resources Director, and Billy Helene, our the union president. We are very excited to have you all on with us.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. And I purposely use that word opportunity because I want to talk about what a great opportunity this was for us this year to put together this program around teacher interns. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of openings for opportunities this year. It's been a lot of trying to get things done, sort of catch as catch can. But in this case, we really did have a great opportunity, and Dr. Cleveland worked with us on this idea of coming up with teacher interns. We've always had alternative teacher openings and positions, and we've hired a lot of alternative teacher individuals over the years. And just to give the board a little bit of information, an alternative teaching license is issued to somebody who already has a degree. They have to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree. It is a full level 1 license, but it's only issued for 2 years instead of 5 years. And it's issued for 2 years to allow the individual some time to complete either coursework or a dossier, and then to acquire the full level 1 license. Typically, the alternative licensure individual is placed directly into a classroom, takes over the classroom, and takes full assumption of the class. But as we thought about it, and we recognized that we would have quite a few openings in all of our schools based on the response to the COVID-19 virus from a lot of our staff, we decided that what may be very, very helpful to the principals, was to have some additional staff in these schools, but we wanted to continue to have very highly qualified staff. So what we did is we advertised, and we went out and looked for folks that fit the alternative licensure program, but could meet the intern teacher qualifications. So that all being said, I want to turn this over to Peggy Johnston, the Human Resources Director, and to Billy Heelan, our union president. And Peggy got very excited about the intern program. She really took great ownership of this, jumped right in and really worked on putting this program together. And so I really want to thank her very much. And as always, I really want to thank Billy, because the union has really supported us. All of us, we have worked very well together this year. We've worked strongly together this year is a better word, I think, as towards common goals, towards having these schools open, towards really providing an outstanding education for kids in, as we keep saying, remarkable circumstances. So I'm gonna turn it over now and let them take over the presentation and move on from here. Thank you all very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mike. We appreciate that. And I'm very grateful to be here tonight with Billy. She's been an amazing person to work with, and I really am honored to have her with me here tonight. So thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. And Jane, you can go ahead and advance to the next slide if you'd like. So this, I wanted you to be able to see, this is a great graphic that Beth and her department put together to advertise the teacher intern program. So we put this out on our social media, and I believe it even made the evening news at least one night. We got some great response from that, people calling, wanting to know what the program was about, how they could find out more information. And I think that has really allowed me an interesting personal opportunity to speak with some folks. When they're applying to our website, it's not exactly a personal situation, until you get to an interview part, or, time for an interview. So as they would call and talk to me or shoot me an email and ask me questions about the program, I really got a chance to know some of these individuals quite well and answer their questions and talk to them about the district. And I think that can go a long way towards encouraging a relationship with someone. So as you can see, it is a pilot program for this year, and we're looking at another term you could use for this is kind of a site-based permanent sub, especially with COVID this year. That presented a bit of a challenge for our substitutes, and so we did have some substitutes who chose not to come back with us this year. We also wanted to see if we could limit the exposure that people had going from building to building this year to try to limit possible spread of COVID. And so one of the things we thought we could do is to place teacher interns at particular sites, and that would allow us not to have that movement back and forth from some of the buildings. As Mike mentioned, a candidate for the teacher intern program would have to hold a bachelor's degree, and they would have to be willing to pursue an alternative teaching license from New Mexico Public Education Department. These are full-time teaching positions. They would be getting a contract with Rio Rancho Public Schools, and they would be eligible for benefits. Next slide, please. So the job postings are listed in 3 different pools on the website if anybody wants to take a look at it. We're looking at basically dividing them up between our elementary, middle, and high schools. There's a couple of different reasons for that. Instead of putting everyone into one pool, that way it allows the principals to actually select folks that are interested in working at their particular locations at their grade levels. It also helps us in HR to determine what type of licensure we should be helping them pursue. And that's a big thing that HR is helping these folks with, is really navigating those waters of the licensure program and the applications. And as I mentioned, applicants must already have a bachelor's degree and be willing to obtain that alternative teaching license. Next slide, please. So what are the goals of this program? And I know Dr. Cleveland and Mike have already kind of spoken a little bit towards this, so I'll just kind of reiterate what they said. But we really want to nurture these beginning teachers. I kind of like what Dr. Cleveland said when she first started explaining it to us. She said, think about growing our own teachers. I thought that was such a neat visualization, a great way to put it. So we're looking at folks who maybe they're looking to make a career change. Maybe they're just getting out of school and they're not quite sure what direction they want to go in, but they didn't start out with an education degree. That's not what they actually went to school for. So we're looking at, could we encourage some of these folks to come on board with us and then have them stay and take over their own classroom eventually for Rio Rancho Public Schools. We also want to make sure that we're assisting and supporting them throughout the licensure process with NMPED. It can be a little confusing. There's a lot of information. There's also a few different ways that people can go and obtain their alternative teaching license, so we can help guide them through that. We're also providing more support to the school sites, filling some of their vacant positions or coverage for daily or long-term absences. Next slide, please. So originally the allocations for the teacher intern positions were that we would have 1 per elementary school and pre-K, 2 at each of the middle schools, and then 4 at each of our comprehensive high schools. To date, we've actually had 25 teacher interns be recommended for hire. Several of those have gone on to actually obtain their own classrooms. They've been offered classroom positions with the district. So they're no longer classified as a teacher intern. They are still pursuing the alternative licensure, but they have their own classroom. And we are actively exploring expanding the allocations to the elementary schools to potentially go up to as many as 3 teacher interns per site. And the reason for that is the need to cover those teacher vacancies and quarantine absences in the elementary schools, since those are the schools that are in hybrid mode for us right now. Next slide. So our teacher interns are treated as beginning teachers with Rio Rancho Public Schools. That includes placement in the mentor program, which consists of being assigned a mentor teacher at their school site and a required participation in mentor seminars throughout the school year. Our curriculum and instruction and IT departments work with these teacher interns and also our beginning teachers to ensure that they are trained on the district's technology and program content. This is definitely an area where we want to make sure we're supporting those folks. As Mike mentioned, these are folks who most of them have not had classroom experience. Now, we do have some of our teacher interns who have substitute experience with us or with other districts, and that's really great. They've kind of got a leg up already, if you will. So they kind of already know the lay of the land, but some of these folks have not. They have not been in a classroom, and this extra support that we can give them is really valuable. Next slide, please. So the HR department will onboard the teacher interns in the same manner as all teachers for the district. Teacher interns are required to complete the RRPS and the NMPED background checks, our Safe Schools trainings, and the COVID-19 trainings. The HR department provides individual support to the teacher interns as they move through the alternative teaching program and the license process with NMPED. And it also provides our school sites with that coverage, like we mentioned before, for those daily or long-term absences, as well as the vacancies that we're seeing this year. Next slide, please. And now I will turn it over to Billy, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about the support that the RRSCU is providing for the teacher intern program.
Thank you, Peggy. So Board President Galbraith, board members, and Dr. Cleveland, thank you for having me again. I'm always grateful to come and visit with you and to share the collaboration that we've had with the district I'm so pleased with the work that we've done, and I'm grateful to Mike and Peggy and Jana and Renee for their tireless efforts to help support the staff with the schools. This program actually may not on a first glance look like something that supports the staff in our school buildings, but it definitely does. When we think about staffing and how class sizes work and all of those things, this program is really integral to all of that. If it wasn't for the teacher intern program, we might have vacancies at schools that would be difficult to fill, meaning that we'd have staff who'd be doing double or triple duty because there's not that extra body to fill that space and that expertise. So it not only helps to help fulfill those positions for staff, but it also is a great entry into teaching. I believe that when we originally presented this program to you, I explained my own experience with my entry into teaching in the fact that I'm a late bloomer teacher. I entered teaching when I was 43, and this was my probably fourth career, actually. Always a dream of mine. So this is a great opportunity for someone who maybe wants to be a teacher and isn't sure how to enter the field. This is a great entry for them. And they're one of the things we really enjoy doing as a union, of course, is supporting staff and making sure that they have the resources they need. And because these interns are included in the bargaining unit, we're able to do that. So that's a really great thing for the union to be able to support these folks as they enter the teaching career as well. And then ultimately, obviously, it provides that relief for staff. The most important thing that does, though, is that it helps us provide instruction for students who may have other circumstances with staff. And so this provides them a consistent staff, someone who has that goal of being a teacher, and it provides some stability for students when they need it the most, especially during COVID. So we're really, really pleased and proud to support this program and to collaborate with the district to make sure that it's running well and that they have all the support they need from the union. So I thank you again for having me, and I'm really excited about the intern program. And I would be happy to answer any questions I can.
Okay, are we ready for questions, Peggy? Is there anything else you wanted to add in there?
We'll stand for questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, first I'll run over to Dr. Cleveland and let her add, and then we'll go to the board.
Well, I just want to thank these three people for not only a great presentation, but supporting this program. And it's one of those things where we wanted to do a long time, and then we never got it done. And so it really came out of two needs. One was the need this year because of COVID and all that was going on. But really, it really serves a longer term need of getting really good people into our schools. And, I thought about over the years, I've had a lot of student teachers and I've worked with a variety of different programs. And I always thought when students got through with their student teaching, how much better they would be prepared if they had a chance to actually work and observe teachers in the classroom through the year. And so these interns are having an opportunity not to just see one teacher, but work in a variety of different environments. And I think it will make them stronger. I just think how green I was when I went in. How the teachers that helped me at Mayfield High School, I would have never survived without them. And I didn't know nearly what I thought I knew once I actually got there. But I've had an opportunity to talk with some of our interns. They are loving the program and they are having an opportunity to see lots of great teachers. The teachers have been warm and welcoming. They feel they can go and they can talk to them and they can get help. One of the biggest challenges that we've had, though, is that we keep taking them out of the intern program and hiring them. And I know that's the long-term goal anyway. So you have to say that's not a bad thing. But we certainly have good people to fill in when we have a need to fill in. And we can say to parents, these are teacher interns. These are people who have degrees. These are people who want to teach. So I think it's a great opportunity for this intern class. We'll learn a lot this year. May come back and make some modifications. And it was really an awful, terrible thing to pass this off to Mike Chavez and to Peggy and to Billy this year with everything else that was going on. But everybody stepped up and said, we're going to make it work. And the feedback, as I said, I've had from several of these interns is it's been a wonderful experience for them. So thank you all for taking it and building it. And it will get better over time. but I'm just thrilled that we have 25 people, I think it was 25, who we hope we'll be bringing into our district. The other side of that, we're really careful who we hire in this process. But it really gives us a chance too to see where they might best fit in the district, what school they would be best at, or what area. And just to tell you, we've got some with teaching certificates already. I know of one young man who has a degree in biology, was hoping to get into pharmacy school. That didn't happen, but he's loving the teaching piece, and is one of our former students. So several of these, not all of them, but several of them are our former students from Rio Rancho Public Schools. And it's really nice to see them want to come back, and want to be part of our school family as adults. So thank you all for your hard work on this.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Okay, and we'll go through the board now. If Wynn Coleman would like to give comment or questions.
Thank you. No, I think that this a very exciting opportunity. Where again are we promoting this on the district website?
So on the district website, it's on the actual job link. If you go to the job link, you'll be able to see it and apply for the job. And then we're promoting it more heavily on our social media, so especially the Facebook page. Maybe Beth or Melissa could speak a little more closely to that. But I did also see it, as I mentioned, I saw it on the nightly news. As soon as we had that out on our social media, it got picked up right away, which was great. But yeah, you can go to the jobs link on our website and see it there.
Okay, thank you. Could you just speak to maybe what someone might expect if they decide that they want to go ahead and take advantage of this, kind of what maybe as far as class-wise or kind of getting their license to teach if they already have their bachelor's. I'm trying to kind of figure out like how much more they should expect for classes and things like that.
Sure. So there are approved programs through a university level. If you go through a community college, well, actually both university or community college level, it would be about a 2-year program of classwork. There are some exams, of course, to take at the end. But if you go through the approved program at a community college, you'll then end up with basically a teaching certificate is what you would get. If you would go through a university level, you'd be actually working towards a master's degree. So it is a bit of a commitment that someone may not be willing to do. It gives you an opportunity to kind of choose which path you'd like to take. There's also another opportunity that you can work through, and it's called the OPAL program. And that's actually basically an online portfolio for alternative licensure through an MPED. And so you're not actually taking any coursework per se, but you're working on a dossier or a thesis, if you will. And that program you could potentially finish in a year, but they do give you the full 2 years if you'd like to take 2 years to do that. So one thing that we do, and again, it's a bit of a personal process, and we have to kind of have a discussion with folks and really find out where they are, what they're willing to pursue, what it is they're interested in doing, and what their background really has been in terms of have they been in a classroom before? Have they done any type of teaching before at another level? Have they maybe been a substitute before? If so, they might be a better candidate for the OPAL program, and then we give them more information about that. But I would say by far the majority of our folks do the approved program going through a university or a community college level.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Peggy, could you share a little bit about what it looks like if people have regular degrees? It's a little different, or Billy, what alternative licensure looks like in New Mexico.
So you would be looking at if you have say you have a business degree, you have a bachelor's of business or something, then you'd be going into working on this approved program, and you'd be taking some teaching coursework through and we're not recommending one program over another by any means, but CNM has a great program. We tend to work very closely with them. Santa Fe Community College, UNM has a good program as well. And so it's really just kind of up to the person what they're individually interested in working towards. And we can certainly help them, and we can certainly get them started with some information, but that ultimate decision of, do they want to go for a master's degree? Do they want to get a teaching certificate? Do they want to do the online portfolio? That's really going to be up to them and what they want to do. And then, of course, their time that they're spending in the school with us. I think that this is such a valuable piece to their education to be able to have that mentor that's assigned to them, an experienced teacher. They're able to work with grade level chairs. They're able to go to PLCs. It's a really great opportunity for them in this first year versus going straight into a classroom on their own. I hope that answered the question.
It has. I probably didn't state it very well. It's just, it looks different if you have a degree. It looks very different than if you don't. And so that really was the point. I know we have some folks that are very interested in it, but this really is geared more to people who have degrees, who want to enter into the field of education. And it does, and there are different paths. So thank you, Pei. Yeah, you answered it very well. My question wasn't really very clear. It's been a long day, actually. So, just one other thing. It's just hard today, over many years, and I know Billy has had much more of this than I've ever had, but certainly some in HR definitely as well. We just hear from a lot of our first year teachers. They sit in our offices and they cry. It is just that first year is so hard. And I thought about what it would be like this year to be a first year teacher. How really hard it would be this year with everything else that's going on. And think about that being your first. So, that's not the topic for today, but I also want you to know that we support our first year teachers who are in those classrooms as well. That's a different approach and a different, but we do try to support them. It is really hard. It'll be interesting to see as these folks move into classrooms, whether they tell us that this was a beneficial experience for them. But I think it's going to be positive.
Okay, Catherine Cullen.
Yes, this is Board Member Cullen. So what is the pay level of these interns?
So these interns are being paid at the beginning teacher salary, which is $41,410. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because especially with the pandemic going on and job losses and a lot of this, I think that, I'm glad to hear that you're getting a good response and certainly well with promoting. There's people that have thought about going into teaching, just haven't, and this is a great program for them to get their foot in the door, I believe. And so thank you so much, and I appreciate all your hard work on this program.
Thank you.
Okay, Secretary Scott.
I have a couple questions. What if you are a teacher in another school district and you want to come? Would you go through this intern program, or would you be applying in another way? And is it hard to transfer from one school district to another within the state?
Those are great questions. So no, if you had already had experience as a teacher and you had a teaching license, then no, we would not have you go down this path. We would go ahead and encourage you to apply for a classroom position with RRPS. As far as the difficulty of transferring, I think especially this year, I think every district is experiencing a lot of vacancies, and we certainly are no stranger to that. So we certainly are still actively recruiting classroom teachers as well. It's not that we've put all of our efforts into just recruiting our interns. So we certainly are recruiting classroom teachers as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Vice President Morgan. Jeff, I can't hear you. Can you guys hear Jeff speaking? Second. Nope. I'll talk for a second and then maybe you can see if it works. You can interrupt me at any time if it starts working. But I shared the image for this on my own social media, my Facebook page, and I tell you, all these people just totally took it and just shared it all over the place. I think it is wonderful. I think it was a really, really great idea to implement, and yes, the perfect year that we needed that. And, hearing about all the support, I love that as well, just to hear of the support that they are receiving. And of course, our first year teachers are receiving, as Dr. Cleveland pointed out, that we're not forgetting them, because it is really hard. And I definitely have, when I started teaching, and I just started teaching last year, I totally cried. So it happened. Like, it's rough. It's rough teaching. And I had 60 teenagers, and that was scary. So it's a hard thing. So we appreciate that. I'll try to go back to Jeffrey Morgan. Is it working for you, Jeff? I can hear like a muffling from a microphone, but I just can't hear your. Oh, there it is. Yes.
Okay.
You're good.
I have nothing. Very good presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're waiting for it and waiting for it.
I'm sorry to let you down. I'm sorry.
That's good.
Very good job. Very good job.
It was good. It's perfect. Thank you so much for your presentation, Billy and Peggy. And we really just appreciate you and updating on us on that. And it sounds like it's working really well. So thank you so much for coming tonight. Appreciate you. Okay. All right, we will now approve the consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be discussed that's on the consent agenda that needs to be pulled off? Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda. And I saw Noreen moving her lips, so she might want to say second. Sorry.
Okay, wait. Perfect. Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I will. Vice President Morgan?
Nod your head, Jeff.
Yes.
Thank you. Secretary Scott?
Yes.
Board Member Cullen?
Yes.
Board Member Coleman?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Jeff, we can hear you now. It came back in, so you're good.
Oh, okay.
You're okay. All right. Thank you, Jane. The motion carries 5-0. Appreciate it. Okay, now moving on to the business portion of the meeting. We will start with item A, to consider the approval of the October 12th, 2020 Finance Committee meetings, unapproved minutes. Is there anything that needs to be fixed on those minutes? Okay.
This is Board Member Scott. I move to approve.
Thank you.
This is Board Member Jeff Morgan. I second.
Thank you. Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I will. Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Scott?
Yes.
Board Member Cullen?
Yes.
Board Member Coleman?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Next item, consider the approval of the October 12th, 2020 unapproved board meeting minutes. Is there anything that any changes that's needed on those minutes? Okay. Okay. I move to approve the October 12th, 2020 unapproved board minutes.
This is Board Member Coleman. I second.
Thank you. Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I will. Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Thank you. Secretary Scott?
Yes.
Board Member Cullen?
Yes.
Board Member Coleman?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. And Jeff, we heard you loud and clear on that, so you were good. Okay, and our next item is it's to go over our legislative priorities for 2021. We have Chris Balzano here, And we want to thank you, Chris, for staying on for us so long tonight. I saw that you were kind of towards the end of our agenda, and so thank you for hanging out with us. And we'll let you go ahead and present.
Good evening, Madam President Gerbert and members of the board, Dr. Cleveland. It's good to see you all through Google, through this conference. I miss visiting with you in person. I can't believe it's already this time of the year where we are going over legislative priorities. So I hope we can have a good discussion after I share with you some of the information that we all have been learning through interim committees and visiting with a few of the legislatures. So let's start. Let's go to the next slide. So what's to expect, right? We are having a regular session coming up next year in January. That session starts on, let me just got my date here. It starts on January 19th which is a Tuesday, and goes until March 20th, which is a Saturday. Right now, the discussion through leadership is pretty much trying to figure out, okay, if we continue with the COVID-19, all those, policies and layers of protection that are there for our safety, how are we gonna do a legislative session? Are we gonna allow people to come in or not? So as today, the discussion is pretty much the committee hearings will perhaps they're discussing having those committee hearings at the conventional center in Santa Fe. So they would lease that building because there is plenty space to have everybody with distance, wearing their masks, and then there is access to the public to actually do public comment and be there in present on committees. And then the chambers, the Senate and the House on the floor sessions would happen around house, but that would be closed to the public. So you would have to watch that through the webcast online. That's pretty much what the discussion is. I believe that after elections, as things get into place and the Senate and the House have an idea who's the legislative body there, and to make that decision, and we will know more in December what exactly they choose to do. So when it comes to interim committees, the updates right now, the LFC and the Legislative Education Study Committee have been discussing. We are in reserves about 28% of the total state budget. We had discussions about cash balances being taken from schools, and we are working and educating legislators again, helping them understand the importance of cash balances and how that is detrimental to school districts, especially to ours. There is discussion of perhaps leave schools districts harmless, since that they are seeing slowly the increase on the reserves and the budget. They're working hard to try to keep school districts harmless. That's the intention of leadership and the legislature right now, and the discussions that are happening at LFC and Legislative Education Study Committee. We also discussing on the SEG. As we know, we had a low enrollment, and we don't want them to use that number to figure out what's going to be our SEG number for the next school year, not legislative year, but school year. So they have been having discussions about, let's take 2018, 2019, and 2020, get on an average number, and that's going to be the number that we will calculate the enrollment, and then we will know, what number we will have on our SEG per student. I have been lobbying the LFC and the Legislative Education Study Committee members on helping understand that why are you going back to 2018 or 2015 or 2017? This is a different time. Why don't just use the previous year number, and then we will be fine, or the 2020, because when upcoming year 2022 comes, we will have, hopefully, we'll be back to our normal lives, and students, coming back to school. And we will have to hire new employees in school districts. We are having students coming back, and we don't want to use a number that is incorrect. So let's use, if you want to use multi-year, use the last 2 years, but do not go far that back, 2017 or 2018. So as we all know, nothing is written in stone yet. That's why I'm monitoring. And hopefully what they are trying to doing, again, keeping school harmless and working with those numbers actually happens. If we can go to the next slide, please. So when it comes to the Yazzie Martinez, you probably know that better than me, the discussion that is happening right now. The legislature sees that they did fulfill their part by providing the required and what is needed when it comes to the funding, the appropriation to meet the needs of the court. However, still, the Legislative Education Study Committee and LFC still discussing, the PD and the legislature. So we have the legislature body and the executive body still discussing with each other. Have we or have we not taken of that? So the discussion is still there. The challenge that comes is, yes, upcoming session comes up. If the budget doesn't look good, it's hard to see that moving. I know that the Navajo Nation and DNEC College and the Department of Education Navajo Nation has been pushing that as well. And we have other players working on that as well, other stakeholders. Another point of discussion that happened throughout the last few months on Education Study Committee is the digital infrastructure in our state. As you always know, every time they update our broadband or internet, we're already late compared to everybody else around the country. That's something that they have been taking a look, especially right now, COVID-19 pandemic, and the need to remote learning and how we can improve that outside of the metro areas. That's the biggest problem. Medical and recreational cannabis, especially in the side of recreational cannabis, is something that they're still looking at. And coming from more a revenue perspective for the state, another source of revenue. The problem that I see on that is, like last year, I don't think it would pass. And the reason is, until Senate Judiciary Committee actually changes its body of legislatures, I don't think the state is ready for that. There is a lot of items in creating this infrastructure to allow recreational cannabis in our state, and the consequences that comes with that as well. Those are topics that are discussing and debating during interim. Behavior and mental health. I think we had a great presentation. I was listening to that. A lot of that has been discussed on the Human Health Services Committee, which is another committee that I monitor for us. And the legislators are aware, and they want to continue working on initiatives, especially for school and any initiatives that come to create those layers to identify any problems and interfere in the early time as possible. And SCG and cash balances, again, that's actually was the information that I began sharing with you on what is actually they are trying to do in relation to the average of the years and the state reserves. Next slide, please. So here, just for some administrative recommendations. As your government relations liaison, I feel that I should share some of the items that perhaps you can think about it. But again, I wanted this to be a discussion, you as a body, to decide what we should create in our legislative strategy. COVID-19, again, holding us harmless with the decline of the environment. Already made my point on that earlier. Opposition on any unfunded mandates. That's something that I can see happen during this upcoming session where, okay, we don't have the budget on a state, but legislatures are coming up with bills that perhaps there is a principle and that it is good to do it, but there is not funding attached to, and then where it goes, we're gonna have to find money somewhere to make that mandate fulfill that in our school district, which again cost us money. Cash balances protection, and that's the other discussion that we are taking a look and trying to build that coalition to really make sure that the school district is staying harmless on the cash balances. As you know, there is a piece of legislation which was the SB 48 that brings a very high cost for school district. And that is a bill that was designed, and I have a memo that if you like, I can send that to your email, that, you know, it was designed as called the diabetes legislation. And the intention, I want to make sure that everybody understands, it's something important is there. It's just that how we can refine what is in the statute right now and make it better. I don't want in any way saying, oh, wait a minute, this legislation is good because we are training, we are finding, you know, putting adequate people there to take care of the diabetes drugs application or students. Yes, it's a good piece of legislation. However, there is no appropriation attached, there is no funding attached, and there is a cost that comes with that. How we, you know, what suggestions we can approach, finding a sponsor and kind of refine what is in statute to help us. I know that's something that was on our legislative priority, and I want to make sure to bring that up back again because it was brought by some of you not as a concern as the bill, but the cost that brings it. And if we can have help with that, something that is good. Next slide. So here we comes with the discussion time. If you have any questions on my presentation, please feel free to ask. Maybe I spoke a little bit faster, but otherwise we can, you know, I'll make my notes here and then we can talk about any of those items.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And before I go to the board, Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything before we start kind of discussing?
The only thing I would add is that I've had an opportunity to talk with a couple of members of our delegation, and they pretty much are lining up with what Chris is saying. Keep it simple, keep it short. This isn't a year when there's going to be a lot of extra money coming for a lot of requests. And so, you know, that was their recommendation, is just have a few priorities, make them your most important, and then push really hard for them.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Okay, so we'll start going through the board and what, you know, if you have questions, comments, what your priorities are. We'll start with, I just go through the pictures on my screen. So we'll start with Wynn Coleman.
Thank you. And Chris, thank you for the presentation. Of course, you know where my interest lies. That was part of the part of the board meeting. But I wanted to just ask you how, as our person that is working with the legislators, kind of how you see this going and how you will, I'm thinking of like the technicalities of how you will advocate since things will be virtual or remote, and kind of, you know, how that is going to play out for us.
Yes, that's a good question. I during the special session, it was something that I came right in my mind. How am I going to reach out to them? And yes, there is, when it comes to the webcasting part, I think what I'm doing, I have been having both my associates taking care of that. If there is anything of high priority for Rancho Public Schools, I pay attention on that. And still the part of government relations and lobbying, the direct lobbying, how you do that. And there are ways to do that. And those ways, you know, we We meet with legislatures, they still have to eat. They still have to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that relationship that you have with them, we can use COVID-19 safe practices and visit with them, have a discussion, educate them. I kept in touch with those strong relationships and leadership to text messages, phone calls, Zoom meetings. You'll be surprised during the special session how many phone calls I got from state legislators asking questions. Hey, can you remind me, how the cash balances work, or why this policy is not good? So even though that sometimes we don't have that direct access, when they are there in committee presenting, when a committee is not happening, the conversation is going behind the scenes. And that's one of the many ways that I'm working on creatively outside of the box to reach out. Now, if that happens, that they decide that, let's close a contract with the Santa Fe Convention Center and have the committee hearings up there, I feel that pretty much there's going to be much difference as it was in the previous sessions when we had access to the roundhouse. I think the big, perhaps, social cultural shock is that everything that is happening around house is not happening anymore. There are not parties, events, banners, people advocating, and people talking outside, inside. You know how is the energy. Every day is something different. There is no more Rancho Day there. So all that changes. But that's how we would approach the business of lobbying and government relations with the legislature in January.
Thank you.
Okay, and board member Cullen. Oh, actually, we'll go to Noreen Sky. Just see she's unmuted, so we'll go there first. Go ahead, Noreen.
Chris, I'm trying to understand how the legislature would hold committee meetings at a separate location when then there's going to need to be a vote on the floor, or they're going to need to be in another committee meeting for testifying, or I can't understand how that's going to work.
Yes, that's a very good point. I can kind of understand how it could work, but certain things that the dynamic of our political system, you're right, you might be in a committee, but you have to be in another, or you have to be on the floor. So they're going to have really to be creative and say, okay, we have to do everything happening at the convention center if that's the location they choose. But then when it's in the floor, it's just business on the floor. And that's where they take the vote for the bill when it gets to the floor. And then everything else just happens in the convention center, right? If a legislature has 2 committees to attend and one is late, he's still at the convention center. He still can move between 2 committees. And just like it would be in a roundhouse, if he or she has to be there to vote for committee, in a convention center, what happened? The challenge would be if the floor session has started and they are at the committee, and they need a vote on the floor. That's the $1 million question, and I think it's gonna take the legislature some creativity and figure out, okay, well, in scenarios where we all know you were not gonna be there to vote for that bill, so hang out in committee, or the other way around. I don't know how it would happen. Maybe they will set up a time and say, by 3 p.m., all committees are done because we are starting on the floor. But then brings, I wonder how judiciary or appropriation were committees that it can go until 10, 11 p.m. and they are debating on a bill. And if there is a bill that is, what's the word I want to use? It can't come out.
A controversial bill.
What is that?
A controversial bill.
Controversial. Thank you. A controversial bill. On that point, I just want to add that I forgot, and I shared that with Dr. Cleveland, Madam President. The other point is there are discussions from the Senate side, not the House, the Senate side, where they're saying, how to do budgetary matters on a 6-day session. And actually, we don't need 6-day session to do that. So picture a 30-day session, but it will be in a 60-day, like where, when I mean 30-day session, meaning the topic, right? The budget and tax only, because there is no money. So, and we do anything that a budget, keep school harmless, and let's get out of here, because it costs money to run a session. But as you know, that can, I don't think the House is going to go with that. But that's another discussion that is happening right now as well.
Well, thank you. From my perspective, I would like to see, if we are going to list a priority, that it would be money for at-risk students. I think that we're going to see those numbers jump. And I would like to see us have some additional funds for at-risk students. And with that, I'll hand this off to another.
Thank you, Noreen. Go ahead, Catherine Collin, if you would like to.
Thank you. This is Board Member Cullen. So right now, basically what you have is your priorities. That was the administrative level, was the hold harmless, no new unfunded mandates, the operational funding for instructional materials and transportation, cash balance protections. Of course, that, you know, a lot of this is the same things. And I was going through and then Noreen, thank you so much for putting that about the at-risk students. Absolutely. That's going to be, we know we're going to see a lot of that. And we know there's not going to be a lot of funding this year. I mean, gas prices are still so low, and, you know, it's great for your tank, but it's, you know, what the implications are going to be for the state, and it's going to be pretty tough for us. So it's slim. So I was looking through our 2020, and we captured a lot of this. I mean, and I do think that we do need to keep it pretty simple this year. Everybody's picture went away. So did I lose everybody?
I can still hear you.
Is everybody there? Okay. Everybody went off camera, so I didn't know if I was talking to myself or what. So I think that we do want to keep it pretty low numbers this year. And so I was kind of looking at what we had for 2020, and because we had like cyber threats, cybersecurity, that's a big thing right now. But behavioral, we did have to provide adequate ongoing funding for provisions of behavioral and mental health. And we know that's a lot of discussion in there within the committees as well. So I think that's a good one to add, to keep that attached onto our priorities this year as well. We are seeing the increase there. Chris.
Hey, I'm just writing the notes here, so that way, you know, we can come.
I'm so sorry. I don't see him, so I just, because I have a habit of losing everybody on every meeting, so I never know if I lose you or not.
We see you.
So, did they fix that funding formula for Fine Arts Education Act?
No, we got really close to it, and it was just a timeline there with the legislature at the time. It did pass on the both chambers, so I'm planning to get it again back together with the council, the Fine Arts Council, and see if we can make that change for the 6-day session, since it's actually, you know, a topic that we can bring it up.
Yeah, since we're in a 60-day session, we have a little bit more time to get that if they ran out of time.
But I recommend, Madam President,
not putting it on there,
and members of the board to let the New Mexico Fine Arts Council use that as their legislative priority, and that way we actually have on ours, you know, something else in the school district, and since I'm a little lobbyist, I will push that as well. So,
okay, we already covered the textbooks and all that. So that, okay, I think that I mean, obviously, you know, we had the career technical opportunities last year, but I mean, we just know that this session is going to be really focused on the funding, and we're just going to try to hold on to the money that we have. So, thank you. No other.
Okay, I'm going to go to Jeff in just a second. I just saw that Dr. Cleveland kind of unmuted it. I just wanted to see if you want to interject something for a second, and then we'll go over to Jeff after that.
Yeah, I did want you to know that we were told on Monday, the superintendent's meeting, money will be coming and there will be a statewide initiative for cybersecurity. And they are working with RiskSense, who of course has worked with us for the last several years. So they are making it a statewide priority. I have no idea how much money we're going to get, but we are going to get some additional money and some additional support. So hopefully some of the concerns that were raised about cybersecurity are going to be addressed through that. And I just wanted you to be aware that this week we should hear about some additional support financially for that. So if that happens, that'll be a really good thing. So I just wanted you to be aware that was coming.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Okay, Jeffrey Morgan.
Hey, just for a second, board. Chris, I know you're looking for priorities, but can I digress for a second, if you don't mind?
Yes, please.
You talked a little bit about cannabis earlier, about it's a money thing, and you said they have not came to that decision yet.
So what I said was that they had a bill previous regular session on recreational cannabis, but it died, right? It never passed Senate Judiciary. It stays there. And my taking is the state legislatures, right? Their constituency. They are hearing what their constituents are saying, and the bill didn't go anywhere. Stay there for many reasons, perhaps because they felt that the bill is not ready, was not crafted in a way that was refined enough to be ready for the state. The timeline as well, with the legislative timeline of things, that is, so there is a lot of that were involved. And that bill will come up again during the 6-day session. I'm not sure if they are crafting a new piece of legislation. If it is the same, the chances that it's going to die again is really high. But that's what I said with a little extra information on that. Did I answer your question?
You did, but I'm going somewhere with the question, and because we're hearing a lot about budgets being cut, not having enough funds to do this. And when you look at other states across the country that has passed this bill, it has brought a lot of revenue into the state. And I would imagine at some point, as we continue to talk about not having enough money to do things, you think they'll start to consider that bill? That's the first question. And secondly, if they do consider that it ever passes, how much of that money will go to the schools, the districts, to fund programs for schools? And you may not have the answer to all of that, but
answer your question. Our state, if you really look into the budget, has been without the money for many years, and they have never passed that bill.
Okay.
Right? And so we have been always struggling. Looking how everything happens there, I feel that there are a few folks that I can count just with one hand that have been, and there is a member in our delegation that has done that in a way that has been effective and is well respected at the legislature in both parties. And nobody's listening to him. Hey, we got to change our tax system, the infrastructure, and the things the way is done. And by doing that, the result. So that, first of all, could help the state. Yes, I agree. It's a source of revenue that could come. But then we're going to have the cannabis division under the Department of Health that is short in staff. How's that, all the infrastructure? How's that going to be put? What are the laws that you have to look? What are going to be illegal? And if it is something legal, then goes to the judiciary. How is it going to be punished? Who can access to that? There's all those variables in this big formula, right? That is debated, and I'll tell you, we have been in worse situations. I remember a special session back in 2016 or 2015 that we were there, and They could have done that too, and it was a topic of debate, but didn't happen. So I think it's much more than the state budget that is preventing something like that from happening.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And I think my own personal priorities have all been hit on. I really like what Noreen added. I think that would be a really important one, and everything that Catherine had talked about. I think those are all everything that I'd written down just before the meeting. I think we really need to make sure we keep our money. I think it's what Catherine was kind of saying earlier. Catherine, go ahead. You want to add?
The real quick is we had that reverse the legislation that changed educator retirement plans last year in the way that discourages individuals from working in the school districts and discourages retired teachers from returning to the classroom. What happened with that?
That they made that change on the retirement.
So we're good. We don't need any additional changes for this year.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I just want to, and then I was thinking with funding for the PPE. We're required to put so much money into our PPE, and we're just not getting. Thank goodness for our community partners that have really helped out, but we're just seeing such a large amount of money going towards PPE and all the safety that we need to provide the schools, and we need to make sure that that's included in the budget as well. And that is, again, we're not required to do all this. I mean, we're required to do it and then not get the money to be able to do that, because then we're always picking into our operational funds to be able to get those things covered. And it just takes away from our classrooms. And we're going to really see a need next school year with our operational funds to go directly to our students.
Okay. I have a question actually on the PPE, and I don't know if anyone knows. Well, Dr. Cleveland, for our PPE, a lot of it, is it disposable? Are we keeping a lot? Are we having that cleaned at a specific facility? I know that the state's contracted with some individuals to clean PPE for hospitals and such, but what's happening with ours exactly?
I think she left, and I think she just rejoined.
Yeah,
for some reason, it's one of the reasons I don't like doing it at home, doing the meetings. Occasionally, I will lose my connectivity. So, and I lost it, but I'm back on. So I'm sorry, you've just gone. Was there a question that I was asked?
Yeah, I was just asking. Catherine was talking about having funding for PPE as a one of our priorities. I was just asking, with our PPE within the district, are we having those things cleaned? Are we disposing of a lot? When we need money, can we put that towards people cleaning stuff, or do we need to? Are we disposing of a lot of that? I think it sounded better the first time. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, it's all right. Sorry, I thought you were done. Everything we have is pretty much disposable. We have a few things in the area of special education where we are cleaning and are reusing. But we're going to continue to need to have PPE. And as the pandemic, if it continues to grow, and hopefully it will not, we are getting more people asking about, for example, we had a discussion at Cabinet today about N95. And as opposed to just the regular disposable mask. And so I think that's going to be an issue, to your point, this whole year is going to be providing adequate equipment, and it may change depending on the severity of the pandemic. So that might be another area where the state might want to continue its priorities to get PPE out to the school districts. And they have sent one large shipment. But we still have other needs, and I think the greatest number of needs. And I don't know if Billy wants to jump in on this, if you would allow her to do so. But I think she's hearing that from teachers wanting improved PPE, and I think that we're going to be asked that, and I think we're going to have to provide it. So I just, wanted to share that. PPE is still a big issue for us, for everyone across the state.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Catherine, did you want to follow up?
Oh, I was just going to say, because Dr. Cleveland may have she may have been off when I had mentioned this, but I put that as one of the priorities is that they're funding it for us. If we're going to be required to keep purchasing the PPE, that we make sure that it's not coming out of our operational funds. That's directly for our classrooms, and that we are getting funding for that, or provided, like you said, from the state, because we're probably going to see this long term. It's not going to go away overnight, even if vaccine comes in. So I think we're going to have to continue to get that PPE, and they definitely need to fund it for us.
Sorry, getting her. I thought she. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, Noreen Scott, I saw you unmuted for a second. Did you want to say anything? No, you're good. Okay.
Oh, I do.
Go ahead, Dr. Cleveland.
I guess it's just a general thing, but there was some discussion, Chris, this week with superintendents, and I think there's a real concern about renting the convention center for 60 days. The cost of that, and we don't have enough money to run buses or buy schools materials or all of that. And I realize it'd be great for the city of Santa Fe because it certainly would help them. And I do understand that and certainly don't begrudge them that. But there is real concern about that cost in a year. We have money for other things, but we have money to go and rent a convention center for 60 days. And so it's just, I'm passing on the conversation, but there are a lot of folks, and I know some other boards have real concerns about, that was shared this morning, about spending that kind of money at a time when we have none. So I'll just pass that on. I appreciate what they're trying to do, which is give people a chance to be part of the process. I really do. And I know that they're wanting to be able to spread people out and have the 6 feet and all of that. Parking is a nightmare. And as you said, getting back to where you make the boats logistically seems kind of odd. So I think you're going to hear from some districts a real opposition, not to having the convention center, but spending the money right now when money is so terribly tight.
Okay.
Can I go next slide or any?
I think you're good to go. Are you guys, is there anything else you guys wanted to add, or we'll let Chris continue on? Okay, I think you're good.
All right, next one. So, that I think we discussed a little bit about that. I call the minimal successful criteria. So what is the expectation for the board? Something to think about it. What do you see as, okay, this is success if we deliver, if we stop. So just think about that, and you can reach out to me, send me an email, send me a text message, or give me a call. And during this time, as we craft this legislative priority, I will continue sending you the reports, the analysis, the memos when you need during the session. We have a weekly call with the superintendent cabinet and providing those reports as well. But if there is anything else that during the session that you feel like, Chris, I would like to receive, X, Y, and Z, please let us know. We can track, monitor, provide analysis, everything, and provide you in a way that is quickly you can see it and kind of like have that update on monthly or weekly basis, whatever you like it. So next slide. So the next step is pretty much bring those priorities to approval before the board on the next board meeting. Also, we always have been doing the legislative forum where we invite our delegation to come into the school district. They would have dinner. We would present our priorities. But with COVID-19, that has been something that I don't foresee happening. We could, I don't know, perhaps drop off dinner and with a legislative priority and have a Zoom meeting. I don't know, but something that we can brainstorm and think what's the best way to approach on that, so that we share legislative priorities with our delegation, That way they're all aware exactly why and advocate for us at the legislative session. Capital outlay requests right now is something that I would put on hold until we have a better picture of the state finances and what is going to come up and what's not. I think by December, we will know by before December 16th, have an idea on that. And then we can discuss a little bit more on that as well. Again, the dates of the session is there. If there is any bills that we decide to introduce for any reason, we have now a new legislative bill introduction date, which is, I believe, is January 4th or is the 1st. They changed that. It used to be December 16th, but now with the updated law for new legislatures, that way new legislatures and senior legislators, they all can file at the same time. And it I think it's January 4th. I think that's the date. Next slide. So I have my direct line right there, my cell phone and my email. And again, if you have any questions or just want to talk to me, please feel free to reach out.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. We really appreciate all the emails and everything that you send out to keep us all updated on everything. And we appreciate you coming out tonight to get all this. Dr. Cleveland, did you have something you wanted to?
You just said it, so I'm good.
Okay.
Let's thank Chris for all his hard work.
Yeah, you do a great job, Chris, in keeping us updated, and we really appreciate all the hard work that you put in on our behalf. So thank you so much. With that, you can, I guess now you can go finally on. We have one more thing to go through and and our own meeting, but thank you. And we're loving the beard. It looks fantastic. We haven't seen you in a while. So thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night and stay warm, please.
All right, you too. Thank you. Okay. So for our last item, I'm always worried that I'm actually still muted, but for our last item of business, we'll consider the approval of the food service contract that Dr. Cleveland was talking about earlier tonight, extension, and this will be presented by Arlene Manzanares, Executive Director of Finance.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I just would like to extend my apologies to everyone. I'm having issues with my camera, so I don't know why I cannot turn it on. But anyway, we'll move forward. So, and this is the last item, so it won't take that long, but Madam President Galbraith, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland, it's my pleasure to present the food service contract extension to you this evening. First of all, this year is the 4th year of the Rio Rancho Public Schools food service contract with Sodexo. Therefore, we normally would be going out for RFP this year. However, on October the 8th, we received an email from Mr. Griego, who is the Deputy Director of Student Success and Wellness Bureau with PED, to inform the school food authorities that due to COVID-19 pandemic, we could execute a waiver in accordance with the USDA and PED to extend the existing food service contract for an additional year, taking the total term of this contract to 5 years. And just to give you a little bit of history, it's important to understand that through this procurement process, there is an in-person bid meeting for the food service management companies to view the national school lunch program operations and view the school's facilities. It's also imperative that the data referenced in the proposal references a clear picture of a normal type of meal service, along with the average daily participation and other important information in order for the food service companies to give an ideal and accurate proposal. So due to these unprecedented times and not being able to provide the items that I just mentioned, we believe we would be unable to conduct a fair procurement process. Therefore, it's our recommendation to solicit the board's approval to execute this waiver provided by USDA and PED in order to extend the current contract for Sodexo to a total of 5 years. With that being said, I stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Arlene. Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything?
Not really. I said most of the things I wanted to say earlier, but I do recommend approval. This is not the time to go out and look for a whole new contract, depending on all that goes into that. And so I'm really glad the federal government gave us the extension on it. I think it was a very wise thing for them to do.
Madam President, this is Noreen Scott. I move to approve the extension of the Sodexo contract.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any more comment or questions from anyone?
This is Board Member Jeff Morgan. I second.
Okay. Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I will. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Arlene, so much for your presentation and explanation of everything going on. We appreciate you.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, before I get into the advanced planning, is there anything that I neglected or anything else? Okay. So for our advanced planning, we have October 30th and November 2nd. We have elementary school conferences. November 2nd is our next, which is next week, just to note. Usually we'd go every other week, but November 2nd is a regular board meeting, virtual at 5:30. November 3rd is Election Day, and November 11th is Veterans Day. And with that, this meeting is adjourned tonight. Thank you all so much, and I hope you stay warm.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.